She has given them a warning once, and they stuck to it. Now one man has got against her wishes, so she will set it right. A figure in a dark brown cloak walked down a marble hallway leading to a large set of doors made from dark wood. There were hundreds of people varying in race and dress in a hall, but the one thing that they all had in common was that they each ruled a kingdom or empire. Everyone was yelling at each other. "This was your fault," a woman with light gray skin, silver hair, pointed ears, and purple eyes yelled at a human. She was a dark elf. The human has a pure white beard, in a green robe with a crest of a golden and red marking on it. "I will never be told what to do," he said in a gruff voice as he locked eyes with the woman that yelled at him. The large ebony doors that lead into the hall flew open as the cloaked figure walked in. Everyone turned to the person that had walked in. Some drew swords, some summoned flames into their hands, plus others had other weapons. The cloaked figure pulled back the hood to reveal a woman with long white hair, and her rainbow eyes scanned everyone in the room. "I had told you all that if you use the gift that I have given you to wage war with each other, I will take it away," she said as she locked eyes with everyone in the room. Flames that were in the hands of some people's hands went away, and I have done so, but, she finished before speaking a riddle. "True evil shall rise, shall try to bring all life to its knees. But a child shall be born. Oh, child that will be born. Birth from a moon and a yellow flame shadow. He will be born with a fox of tails of 9. Oh, son of the moon maiden. Come forth, aid in sealing away the evil. Unite the world. Come forth. Maelstrom whirlpool and save the world." It was a prophecy that had been foretold. One child will be born with her gifts once more. But who will it be, and how long would it take? So all the kings, queens, emperors, and empresses send out their people to try and find this child. 100 million years later, October 10th, Konoha. People were going now the night of October 10th before their night was interrupted by a massive puff of smoke. The Kyubi no Kitsune suddenly appeared one day. After the smoke left, there was a massive fox with 9 tails flowing behind it. Its tails was lazing out smashing mountains. It turned its head to leave the village then, but it suddenly stopped and attacked the village. It was using its tails to destroy the village and sending tidal waves crashing to the shores. Ninja all over Konoha started to attack the giant fox, doing little. But they were all getting batted away from it and crushed under its claws. The ninja of Konoha rose to defend their village. After 5 minutes, someone summoned a toad on the same side as the fox in a puff of smoke as golden chains formed around it, holding it in place. 2 shinobi faced the Kyubi no Kitsune in mortal combat and sealed it away. The Kyubi goes to strike something as 2 figures get in the way. The first was a man with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was wearing a white haori with red flames at the bottom. Under that was the standard Konoha uniform with 2 bands on both of his sleeves, a green flak jacket, blue hitayate, and blue sandals. Yandame Hokage. The other was a woman with crimson hair and violet eyes, straight and reached her ankles. She was wearing a high-collared, sleeveless white blouse under a long, loose-fitting green dress with a wristband on her left wrist and standard shinobi sandals. Around her neck was a necklace of a silver crescent moon. And the Akai shirt. Behind the man, a ghostly figure formed that looked like the Shinigami as it hovered behind him. Kyubi goes for another strike, and as it does, both jumps in front as they are impaled on its claw. They gave their lives to seal it away and protect Konoha. In front of the woman who was in front was a baby. This baby was only 1 hour old. The child had the man's eyes and hair while he had the woman's face. 6 whiskers lined their face. But to them, they had something more important to protect. The fox turned into orange energy in the shape of the fox as it started to flow into the baby as a seal formed onto their belly. It was their son, Naruto Uzumaki. Konoha, Hokage Mansion, Nursery. Naruto was sleeping in the crib in the nursery, and as he slept, the woman that died for him stood in front of the crib, but her eyes were now silver. "My son," she said as she looked at the baby in the crib, "I wish I could take you away from here and be with me." She wept, wiping the tears from her eyes. Now, Now Artemis, a voice behind her said, and as she turned around to see that there was a woman in a brown cloak that hid her body stood behind her. A silver bow appeared in the now named Artemis' hands as she drew back the string of her bow as arrows formed notched. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I am one of the few that was there from the beginning," the woman said as she walked past Artemis. "But you may call me Magic," she told her. Artemis's eyes widened as she looked at the embodiment of magic in front of her. "Lady Magic, why are you here?" she asked one of the 9 constants. "My chosen one has been born," Magic said as she looked down at Naruto with a warm smile. "And I am looking at him," she continued, and leaned over and kissed Naruto on the forehead. Magic looked at her chosen one and turned to his mother. "He will have a complicated life coming up," she told the archer. Magic turned into purple energy that looked like fire with stars within it as it faded out. Artemis took off her necklace and put it on her son. "You will be the one to save us all," she said to her son as she touched the silver crescent moon. It glowed silver before changing to a snarling wolf. "And you're only so young, I'm sorry, my son." She leaned in to kiss her son's head where his eye opened to look at her. "I will miss you." She heard the door about to open, disappear into moonlight. An elderly man in white and red robes walked into the room to see that the sleeping Naruto now had a silver necklace. "What the?" he said to himself, trying to take the necklace from the baby without waking him up. Trying to be the key word as he tries to take the necklace off. It becomes unmovable, like another necklace that this baby's mother wore. "So Kushina gave you her necklace?" He said as he looked at the newborn. "Good night, young one," he said to the baby, who was closing his eyes once more as he turned the lights off and closed the door. 6 years later, September 8th, Konoha. There was a blonde, spiked-haired boy walking through Konoha. On his head was a pair of green goggles on his forehead, 3 whisker markings on his cheeks, his blue eyes looking around at the people. Around his neck was a snarling wolf necklace. He was wearing a black shirt with a flame design, white shots, and blue ninja sandals. This was Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was walking down the Konoha Market District on his way to a training field where he had a maid hidden from everyone. Seeing the glares he was getting from everyone, he walked, thinking about the 2 lessons that he had learnt living in Konoha. 1. Keep to yourself. 2. Trust only the Hokage, Ichiraku Ramen, and yourself. So he kept walking to his training field. As he walked, he never knew that 6 ninjas were following him in animal-style porcelain masks. These was the Umbu, or Ansatsu Senjutsu, Takushibutai. "This is the 12th time we have tried to follow him," one of them asked as she has on a rabbit-like mask. "Lord Hokage wants to know where he is training," another said as she wore a cat mask. So all 6 followed him into the forest where they suddenly got lost and could not find him. "What the?" a man in a snake mask asked as he looked over the forest to try and find Naruto. With Naruto, Foxgrove. Naruto walked into his training field, and he felt, and always felt whenever he came here, relaxed. And why wouldn't he be? The trees around here were cherry blossoms that were always in bloom, a lake with a small island with a massive tree that leaves glowed and changed color every time he touched it. The lake was clear and clean, with fish of many kinds in it. Here he was indeed at home. And so he got to training on the Bunshin no Jutsu, and so he started to make clones over and over. But most of them came out looking dead or dying, so he kept at it until... "What do you keep getting wrong?" Naruto yelled as he sat down and picked up a leaf off the ground and did the leaf concentration practice, and he was doing good at that. As he got up, he wiped the dust off his hand in a circular motion and then felt something pull from within him. But once he stopped, the pull faded. Naruto looked shocked at that. "What was that?" he said as he looked at his hands. Naruto looked at his hand and held the other over the other, hoping that he felt that pull. But nothing. Naruto sat down once more and started to look within for things he was pulling at. As he searched, he passed his chakra. Then he went over seemingly angry energy within him. No, not that. After he moved past that, he found what he was looking for. Chaotic energy. This was it, and this felt familiar to him. So he tried to grab it and mold it, but it would not move. He gave it another pull with some anger that fueled him. Still, nothing came. Then an idea came to him. "I'll ask Gigi," he muttered. So wanting to get some anger out, pulled out some kunai and shuriken and started to do some target practice with some trees that had a target that he had painted on. The next day, Hokage office. An old man with a white goatee. He was in white haori with a red, full-length kimono tied using a white sash. This was the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting in his office as he heard a knock at the door. "Come in," he called. The door opened, and Naruto walked in with a questioning look on his face. "Yes, Naruto," the Hokage asked the blonde. "Gigi, are there multiple times of energy in someone?" Naruto asked the elderly man. "Yes, there are 4 types of energy in someone," Hiruzen told the young boy. "Why?" he asked. "Are any of the chaotic?" Naruto asked the Hokage. Hiruzen looked puzzled at this. Human chakra was calm but fierce. On the other hand, the tailed beast chakra was wild but not chaotic. "May I ask why?" he asked the young boy. "When I was training earlier, I felt a pull of something," Naruto said and showed the Hokage what he did with his hands. Hiruzen looked at Naruto, and he could feel something, but it was not chakra. "Well, let's head somewhere we can this out," he said as he got up to leave with Naruto following him. Konoha Library. Naruto and the Hokage walked in as the receptionist looked up at them, but she glared at Naruto. The receptionist had cyan hair and brown eyes sending hate at Naruto, so she turned to the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, what can I do for you?" she asked the village leader. Seeing the glare at Naruto, he turned to her with one of his own and asked, "Do you have any books on energy that the body produces?" The hate in her eyes turned to confusion as she typed in on her computer to try and find anything that matched what the Hokage was looking for until she found something. As she got up, she was in a maroon shirt and waistcoat, a white shirt, and a black tie with a golden Konoha symbol stitched in on the tie and waistcoat. "Please follow me," she told them as she made her way down the shelves, as her high heels were clicking on the floor of the library until she found what they were looking for. "These books here," she said as she indicated to the shelf in front of her, "are books that say that the human body can produce another type of energy," she told them. "Thank you," Hiruzen and Naruto told her. And as she was about to leave, Naruto asked her a question. "Excuse me, do you have a book or books on hidden places that only some people can find?" "Only some people can find," she asked, trying not to anger the Hokage when asking the question. But she was sneering at Naruto. "Yes," Naruto said, and then when she urged him, he continued, "I have found a place that I train that only I can find even when I try to lead the ANBU to there by walking slow, but they still cannot find it." "Only you can find it?" she asked the blonde, who nodded his head. "I'll have a look, but do not get your hopes up," she told him as she walked away to try and find the book. Naruto and the Hokage started to pull books from the shelf, so they read them to try and find out when this energy was in Naruto. They were there for hours and hours until the receptionist came back with a book in her hands and looked at the Hokage and said, "Uzumaki, I have found what you want," getting the attention of both of them. Hiruzen looked at the book in her hands, and the title got him on attack mode. "Tailed Beasts and Why They Are Here." Mito Uzumaki wrote this book. "What is it?" Naruto asked her. "This book tells about 9 places in the world that only some people can find," she said as he handed the book to Naruto, who flicked through the book until he found what he was looking for. "In this world, there are 9 places that are so secret and well hidden only those that are Jinchuriki or the tailed beast that they keep prisoner can find," Naruto read aloud, and then looked at the Hokage and asked, "MIA?" "No, Naruto, you are not the Kyuubi," the Hokage said as he saw the look on Naruto's face as he talked to him. "You are the warden. The seal on your stomach is the prison, the Kyuubi." Hiruzen said, looking into the eyes of someone he sees as a grandson, "Is your prisoner." Naruto looked into his grandfather's eyes and could see no lie. He became unlively happy that he was indeed a human. He returned to find the energy as the Hokage pulled the receptionist aside. "What in Kami's name were you thinking?" he growled at her as he held her by the throat, holding her against a shelf as he choked her. He would have found out eventually. She struggled against the power of the Kage. "Umbu," Hiruzen called as 2 Umbu knelt next to him. "Take her, he was saying before she cut him off. Please, I'll do anything. Don't send me away. Please, she begs the man who looks at her like an insect beneath him. He was about to speak before a memory came to him. He started thinking about the memory until he remembered something from Mito on her deathbed. 18 years ago, Senju clan house. Mito Uzumaki was lying in her bed as she looked at her great-great-granddaughter, crying even if she knew who that little girl was beneath the skin. A younger Hinruzen walked into the room to say his goodbye. Little Saru, I have need you to do something for me, she asked the man after he had said his goodbyes. What is it, Mito-sama? He asked her. She looked at the man before her with a smile, as she saw not the Sandame. No, not him. What she saw was the little boy that being taught by her husband and brother-in-law. Now, Saru, there is something I will need you to get the clan records from my home, she said as she looked at him as the life faded from her, as the shape of her husband came into view. In Yuzu, take the vial that is marked as next and get everything there, she finished before breathing her last breath and passing on to the next great adventure. Present day? What is your name? He asked her. Seiko Aso, she said as she looked at him. Very well then, Seiko, Hiruzen said as he looked at her. I'm going to send you somewhere. She started crying at that, but he held up one hand. You're going to Yuzu with these ENBU to get some things, he continued as the tears in Seiko's eyes stopped running. When do I leave? She asked him. Come to my office with 2 months' worth of supplies, Hiruzen said to her. Then you will head to Yuzu for the things there, he told her. She nodded her head and got ready to leave. Naruto was going now the books until he found something that would help him. Hiruzen returned to find Naruto looking in depth at one book that looked like the answer that they were looking for. Gigi, I think that I found it, Naruto said, showing the book to the Hokage. He nodded his head as he looked over the book in front of them and nodded his head as he looked at it. As Naruto was started to get the hang of it, the Hokage spoke. Naruto, I have to leave for a month, he told the boy who looked at him. Try and find out how to use this. Okay, he asked the boy, who gained a smile so bright that it could blind people with. Leave it to me, Naruto said to Hokage. As they were on their way out, Hiruzen thought one thing. What is mana? 1 month later, Konoha Academy, Konoha. Naruto sat at the back of his class thinking about that power he felt in his hands and what he had learned from reading as the teacher ignored him. Like always. Only a few students knew that the teacher purposely ignored Naruto. Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburang, Hinata Hyuga, and Sakura Haruno. Naruto mainly focused on his hands, not caring that he was given the short end of the stick. So Naruto made the swiping motion with his hands, and the pull was there once more. So he went from his thumb to his pinky, and the pull was more potent. When school was over, he ran to his training ground where he could experiment with it. And once he reached it, he did the swiping from his thumb to his pink, but the pull was there, but it was not getting any more substantial. So Naruto made a circle motion with his hand, and the power was doing something as he could feel a well was within him. He held out one hand and held out another over it, and started rotating the top hand over the other, from the middle finger to the base of the palm and back to the middle finger. In the center of his hand was a small section of heat. So he continued to rotate his over the other a second time as the heat spread to the whole hand. Then with a third, a small ball of fire was sitting in Naruto's hand. Naruto looked at the fireball sitting in his hand as he heard a whisper from a woman in his ear. Hold out your arm, the voice said as Naruto looked around him, seeing that there was no one was around him, so he followed the whisper's instructions. He held out his arm with the fireball in hand. Use the power within you to send it flying, the voice said once more as he did. He searched deep within him and searched for that chaotic energy. So he ignored his chakra and not the mass of hatred he sometimes felt as he looked deep within him. He felt the rope that led to the chaotic yet calm energy, neither good nor bad, but genuinely neutral. It was not as large as his chakra well, but it was more substantial than chakra. So he pulled on that, and it shot the fireball from his hand at a target, and BOOM, it exploded into a fiery explosion that engulfed the target. Naruto smiled that he got it right, and started to train with the Bunshin no Jutsu, but as always, It was for not be, he kept trying and trying. As he left his training ground, he could hear that something was happening in the trees above him. Is he this way? A female voice asked another person. That is probably after me, Naruto thought as he saw them be Umbu. Yes, he is, another Umbu said as he looked at the other Enbu. Lord Danzo was him gone. He continued as they jumped away from Naruto and led to the road. Where are they going? Naruto thought to himself until he realized that they were heading for the main road. Gigi, Naruto said as he remembered what he was told. Naruto started to run to the main road that led to the main gate. As Naruto ran, he got ready to fight. He knew that he was not strong enough to fight Umbu, but with his gift, he could. He will fight. As he ran, he finally caught up to the Umbu that was going after the Hokage. Naruto looked up at both of them sitting there in the tree above them and started rotating one hand over the other, once, twice. As the fireball formed in his hand, he aimed at the branch that they were both on. The fireball whistled in the air as it hit the branch. Boom! The explosion echoed through the area. With the Hokage, main road to Konoha. Hiruzen, along with him was 5 of his ninja, were on their way back to Konoha when they were interrupted by 10 Umbu that jumped in front of them. By orders of Lord Danzo, one of them said as they all drew their swords, "We are to take you out." They continued as they went to attack. As they jumped in the air, an explosion. Smoke pushed its way out the trees as 2 more ninjas flew through the smoke as they were charred from fire. Dajimu, Tsukino, what happened to you? A kunoichi with a cat mask asked the 2 down ninjas. As they got up, they printed up as though the air of fireball was flying at them. 11 of the Umbu managed to move out of the way, but one that initially got hit was hit once more by a fireball. As they looked into the forest, Naruto Uzumaki came with a look of determination on his face. As the Umbu that got hit was knocked out as he was sent into a tree. The ninja looked at the child that made more flames in his hand by rotating one hand over the other. You will not touch Gigi, Naruto said as everyone could see that his eyes were not the blue that he was born with. No, they were a dazzling gold that pierced the ninja that dared to attack his grandfather. One of the Umbu that were trying to kill Hiruzen jumped at the young Jinchuriki. This Umbu had a bird mask, but his sword was caught by another sword held by a black-haired man, with red eyes with 3 tomo in them. He was dressed in the standard Konoha uniform. I got this one, little man, he red-eyed man said to Naruto. Naruto nodded his head as he held his hand out and sent the flames at one with a bear mask. As the flames hit her back, she was sent flying with the explosion, pushing her. Her sword was ripped from her grip as she was sent into a tree. Naruto ran to the sword that was gone from the woman with a bear mask. As he grabbed the sword, he heard something behind him. Naruto turned around to see another Umbu going after him when he was hit by a gust of wind sent in an arc. Naruto, seeing that the Umbu was distracted by the arc of wind, Naruto grabbed the blade that he had in his hands and slashed at the Umbu, leaving a long gash in the man. The man fell to the floor as Naruto turned around and ran to the Hokage to aid him. The red-eyed man with his sword blacking with the bird, masked Anbus, asked, "So what's your designation?" Kano, the bird-masked man said as he looked at the man that he was clashing with. Shursui Uchiha, Danzo-sama wants your eye, he continued as he looked into the eyes of Shursui. Well, good luck with that, Shusui said as he kicked Kano away as he flew through and seals and yelled out, Katan. Gokaku no Jutsu. He breathed out a fireball at the man. Thank you, Kano said, confusing Shursui as he flew thou hand seals. Futon. Daitapa, he said as he sent out a massive blast of air from his mouth. The wind hit the flames, consumed it, and sent it back to the Uchiha. Shursui seemingly disappeared, and he then reappeared behind Kano, running his blade thou him. 2 Umbu appeared behind Shushue. Shursui of the body flicker, come quietly, and you will not be harmed, one of them asked the man. Well then, you monkey-looking shits, Shushue said as his eyes turned to a 4-point pinwheel looking at the 2 ninjas. As Naruto reached the Hokage, he gave him a small smile. I learned how to use it, Naruto told him. So I see, Hiruzen said as he went thou seals, Doton. Doryu Taiga, Doton. Doryuden. He called out both jutsu as he formed a river of mud that sent one of the ANBU that had red markings on his mask sliding as a dragon head created out of the mud. The mud dragon had opened its mouth and started shooting at the ANBU. An Umbu with dark blue markings ran at the Hokage with his sword drawn, ready to attack the Hokage. As he was close to striking the Kage, his movement stopped. Kagemain no jutsu success, a man with a pineapple-like hair said as he stopped the Umbu from moving. Santa, your turn, he told the man next to him. Thank you, Shaku, a man with long blonde hair said as he held out his hands pointed at the target. Shinranshin no jutsu, he called out as the Umbu with dark blue started to go after an ANBU with yellow markings. Stabbed his new sword into the ground, formed a fireball in his hand as he aimed in his hand at the Umbu in a cat mask. She turned around from dealing with a brown-haired man. Once she was launched at the brown-haired man, he kicked her aside. Nice aim, kid, the man said as he moved on to join the dark blue Yanbiyu in attacking the yellow-masked one. Kamaitashi no jutsu, a man with gray said as he swung his katana at the two monkey mask-wearing Umbu, sending out multiple blades of winds that started cutting into one of the Umbu, while Shursui cut down the other. Another Umbu with a mask with red markings and an ANBU with a tiger mask attacked the two. The Umbu with the yellow mask was getting double-teamed by his fellow ANBU and one of Hiruzen's ninja before the brown-haired man knocked him out. The Umbu that was getting hit by mud pellets did not see that shadow tendril-like needles trying to dig into him. Naruto picked up the sword and joined in on the assault, as he heard another voice whisper in his ear, "Strike low." The voice said as his body started to get lower as he was going for a strike. "Do not show fear. Always going for the kill, he is the prey," the voice said once more. Then, as the blade was ready for the strike, the voice continued, "You are a hunter," and so he slashed at the ANBU. Everyone turned to the last two, who realized they were the only ones left. So they left as Naruto finally took everything that he had done and the two people that he killed as he fell to his knees looking at his hands. What have I done?" Naruto said to himself as she started to shake. "Naruto," Hiruzen called to the boy, but he was getting nothing. "Naruto," he called again, this time getting Naruto to look at him. "Gigi," Naruto asked as if he was confused as to who was calling him. "It's okay, Naruto," Hiruzen said as he walked over to Naruto. "I know, it's never a good thing to take another life," he continued. Naruto didn't speak as he just looked at the Hokage who was speaking. "I know what you must feel like, but know this one thing," Hiruzen said as he knelt next to him and said one more thing that made Naruto start feeling better. "You are not a monster. You did it to save me, and never say that you are a monster." Naruto looked at the Hokage and nodded but stayed quiet. The ninja tied up the Umbu, removed their fake tooth, and took them back to Konoha along with Naruto. As they got to Konoha, they were met by the Konoha elders. The male elder, Hamura Mitokado, and the female elder, Kohara Udatane, was standing at the gate. "Hiruzen, what was it?" Kohara said until she noted that there were many ANBU bound. "What is going on?" she asked. Danzo did another attempt, he told her, who nodded her head. "I will be in my office with Naruto and Shursui if you need anything." He continued as he, Naruto, and the Uchiha Hokage office. As the three reached the office, they found that there was a woman with long white hair. Her rainbow eyes scanned the three men who walked in as she sat on a throne resembling a tree stump. "Hello, my chosen," she said as she got up as the stump throne. "How long I have waited to meet you truly," she continued. "Who are you?" Hiruzen asked as he got ready to attack. "I am sorcery, the dark arts, witchcraft, and wizardry," she said as the three looked at her confused. "But you can call me Magic," she told them. "Why are you here?" Hiruzen asked her. Before she could open her mouth, Naruto spoke up. "She's here for me," Naruto said, confused about how he knew that. "What do you mean, kid?" Shursui asked the Jinchurik. "What he means is that I am here to tell him about his mission," Magic said as she looked at the Uchiha. "And Naruto, your mission is to save the world from END eventually." "Save the world from END?" Naruto asked her. "Yendi is unknown as it has truly evil nature," she said as the room around them changed to images to show black creatures with beady little yellow eyes. What are they? The Uchiha asked as he looked at the black creatures that were running around started to attack people and more of them spawning. A man with dead blue eyes and shoulder-length white hair, he wears a black and blue organic-looking bodysuit, walked into the battlefield, and as the creatures cleared a path for him. Who is he? Naruto asked Magic. That is Yindi, she said as Yindi looked over to see that there were hundreds there standing there ready to fight him. It took us the equivalent of 12,000 years to seal him away, she continued. The next thing they all saw was a battle that was the one thing that looked like something right out of the apocalypse with what the land looked like. Why should we worry? Shursui asked her. I mean, he's sealed right. Yes, but the seal is breaking, she told them all as she looked sadly at the images around them. As the images faded, they were back at the office with Hiruzen at his desk with Naruto and Shursui by the chairs. How can I help? Naruto asked her. I gave you a gift the day you were born, Magic said as she looked at the blonde. And only you will have the gift of magic, she said before continuing with, well, until you have children. But why only Naruto? Hiruzen asked her. The last time I gave my gift to the world, she said, looking at them with a look of pure sadness on her face. All anyone would do is use it for war. She looked at the face of the Hokage and then said, and so I decided to take it away from them. She shocked the ones in the room. But my sister Fate saw that Yindi was breaking free, so I had to do something, she told them as she looked at Naruto. My two siblings, Fate and Time looking into the time stream. Magic said as her smile came back as she spoke once more. We saw you standing with flame and blade in hand searing down Yindi, she told Naruto. How do I defeat him? Naruto asked her. We did not see as that is what a prophecy is, she told him as she clapped her hands. And as Magic pulled her hands apart, she was holding a rolled-up piece of paper in her hands. She handed it to Naruto, who unrolled it, and looked at it to see it was a world map with millions of red dots on it. What is this? Naruto asked her. I have told those that did not misuse my gift to gather money, information, and knowledge along with any and all things magic, she told them. She walked over to Naruto and kissed him on the forehead. He felt a rush of power. I have refilled your magic well. She started to face away into violet flames. The three sat down as Naruto looked at his new map. As he placed a finger on the part of the map that was the land of fire, it grew. Wow, Naruto said as he drew the attention of both of them. What is it, Naruto? Hiruzen asked him. Naruto turned the map over to show the Hokage to show that the map was known, showing the land of fire. The map has changed, he muttered. As both Naruto and Hiruzen looked over the map, they forgot about the other man in the room with them. Shursui looked at Naruto, thinking about what happened all those years ago, and then did something he never thought he would ever do. Hokage-same, I would like to request to train Naruto Uzumaki, the Uchiha asked his leader. Hiruzen looked at the Uchiha and asked one question on both him and Naruto's mind. Why? He asked the teen. Shursui is 14 in this story right now. He needs someone to teach him how to use chakra, Shursui said to the Hokage, who was nodding his head. That is true, Naruto muttered to himself. And I can keep the fox in check if it decides to do something, Shursui added, getting another nod from the Hokage. And maybe we can find out why it attacked Konoha, Naruto said, drawing the attention of both men to him. What do you mean, Naruto? Hiruzen asked the boy. We are told that it was summoned, Naruto said, looking at the Hokage, who nodded his head. So that means that it was summoned to attack Konoha, my someone. And maybe controlled, Shursui added as a light bulb went on in his head. Hiruzen clicked his fingers as an umbu with a kneeling next to him. Get me. Inoichi Yamanaka, he told the umbu, who nodded their head and left to get the man. The Sandaime turned back to Naruto and asked him, how long did it take you to find out about that fireball? 1 month, and I think it's called Fire Blast Ball, Naruto said as he looked at his hands. After waiting a few more minutes, Shursui was thinking about how to help Naruto to use chakra better. Naruto was studying the map that he had got to find one of the cache of magic knowledge, and Hiruzen thought that magic could aid in defending Konoha. The umbu came back with a man with long ash-blonde hair reaching into his lower back, which he wore spiky on top and ending in a long ponytail, light green eyes, and robust facial features, which included a well-defined jawline. He was seen wearing the standard flak jacket over a black outfit, complete with handguards, forehead protector, and a sleeveless red haori. "Hokage-sama, you called for me?" he asked as he walked into the room. "Yes, Inoichi," Hiruzen said as he got up from his chair as he walked over to the man. "I need you to send me, Naruto, Shursui and yourself into Naruto's mind to meet the Kyuubi," he told the man. Inoichi was slightly concerned, but he did as asked. He flew thou hand seals, and all four of their cognizances was sent within Naruto's mind. Naruto's inner world. All four of them opened their eyes in a sewer with large yellow walls and large pipes. "This is not the worst mind I've been in, but not the best," Inoichi said as he looked around. They all set out to try and find the tailed beast and where it rested. After a while, they were met by massive gates. As they looked the bars a pair of red slit eyes opened above them. "My host decides to visit." Its voice boomed out as it looked at the four of them. "So what can I do for you?" he asked. Naruto walked forward as one of the Biju's claws came through the bars to try and strike Naruto. Naruto just looked dead into the eyes of the fox in front of him. "If these bars aren't there, you could die as well," the fox was saying before getting cut off by Naruto. "What do you mean?" the Kyuubi asked his blonde host. "If I die, you do as well," Naruto said as he walked past the claw. "That is why you constantly heal me. You don't want me to die as you wish to continue living," Naruto continued as he stood directly in front of the gates. The Kyuubi withdrew his claw as he looked down at Naruto. "What you say is true, so I will ask once more, what can I do for you?" he asked Naruto. "Why did you attack Konoha all those years ago?" Naruto asked him. The other humans walked up to join Naruto as the fox laid his head down. "I was in my previous host when I was suddenly ripped out of her and was made to attack your village," he said as he looked directly at Shursui. "It was a member of your clan that made me attack." "I mean no disrespect, but how do you know that it was an Uchiha?" Inoichi asked the fox. "All humans have a Pacific scent to them," he answered the Yamanaka. "Yamanakas smell like camellias, Uzumaki's smell like ramen," the fox said as his eyes moved over each of the humans but stayed on the Uchiha and the Hokage. "But the Sarutobi and Uchiha clan smell similar. The Sarutobi clan smell like wood fire smoke, while the Uchiha clan smell like coal fire," he continued, getting a realization. The Hokage took in this information as the fox had said. "Do you know who it was?" he asked. "No, but he was around my host quite a bit," he told the Kage. He nodded to the fox and then to Inoichi, who was getting ready to bring them out. As Naruto looked at the fox, "If you need anything, don't bother keeping it to yourself. Tell me, okay?" Naruto told him as he was pulled out. The Kyuubi looked at the spot that Naruto was just standing. He then spoke softly, "I will try, Kit." Real world, Hokage office. As the four woke up, they all got to work. Inoichi was sent to gather the council. Shursui was sent to tell his clan head about what he found out from the fox. Naruto went looking for one of the places on his new map to learn more about magic. And Hiruzen to do the paperwork on his desk. Uchiha clan compound, main house. Shursui was trying to find the leader of his clan when he phoned him talking with some of the police force. "Fugaku-sama," Shursui called out to the man. Fugaku Uchiha had short, brown hair that reached to his shoulders and the Uchiha onyx-colored eyes. He was in the standard flak jacket, a black shirt with the Konoha military police force symbol on the shoulders, shin guards, and a black, open front apron with white diamonds on the bottom. "Yes, Shursui," he asked the teen. "I have some good news and some terrible news," Shursui said as he looked at his clan head. "And what is this news?" a female voice said as they both turned to see the wife of Fugaku standing there along with their eldest son Itachi. Mikoto Uchiha is a fair-skinned woman with long, straight black hair with bangs hanging on either side of her face to roughly frame her cheeks, and Uchiha black eyes. She wore a simple dark purple blouse with a red plum skirt and a light yellow apron commonly worn over it. Itachi Uchiha has his mother's hair that was pulled back in a low ponytail, and his face was framed with center-parted bangs that extended to his chin and father's face with pronounced tear troughs. He wore a black shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on the back, bandages around his ankles, and black sandals, tan pants with a weapons pouch strapped to his back. "Well, the good news is that me, The Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki, and Inoichi now know why the Kyuubi attacked 6 years ago, Shursui said to them as he looked at the head of his clan. That's good news, Mikoto said as she looked at her husband, but the look on his face said otherwise. It was an Uchiha, wasn't it? He said as he looked at his son's best friend. Yes, Shursui nodded his head. Fugaku realized that his clan was responsible for what happened. Then he asked, do we have suspects? A male Uchiha that was around the previous host a lot, Shursui said. Fugaku went over everyone in his mind on the about of Uchiha that was around her. That is 17 Uchiha, Mikoto said as she was the first to speak up, 16 alive and 1 Kia, she added. The Hokage is calling a full meeting, Fugaku-sama, Shursui told the man who nodded his head as he made his way to the council chamber. Konoha East Forest. Naruto walked through the forest following the map that magic was given to him. So if I go this way, Naruto said as he looked at his map, seeing that he was turned left, and walked a few minutes until he walked up to a wooden house that looked like it had seen better days. Naruto looked at the map and the house and back again. So this is it, Naruto said as he put his map in his back pocket and opened the door to the house. The inside of the house was in good nick, there was nothing broken. Naruto walked through the house to where the bedroom would he as his eyes unknowingly turned gold once more. Naruto looked at the bed, seeing nothing but dust, but in the room's corner as a bluish see-through man looking at him. What he was wearing looked like robes, but that was faded and flowing, so Naruto did not know what he was wearing. Young mage, he said as he walked over to Naruto. I do not know how long I've waited for this day, but I am glad it came, he continued as he looked at Naruto. Who are you? Naruto asked him. Felder of the wooden court of the Red Woods, the man said as Naruto could see his ears are pointed. Are you an elf? Naruto asked him. I was, Felder said as he walked through Naruto. I am merely a spirit now. Naruto walked out with him, shaking off the feeling that came over him. Then Felder walked through him. All of this if yours now, the elf ghost said, indicating to the house. Naruto looked over everything in the house. What is in here? Naruto asked the ghost. You'll find out, Felder said as he walked outside and started to break into pieces and fade away. Naruto looked around the house and then walked up to a bookshelf. How to make a spell circle, Book of the Demon, First Movement Solo, Dwarvish Runes, Magical Drafts and Potions. Naruto read from the books that were on the bookshelf and picked out 4 and made his way back to Konoha. Late at night, Konoha, Naruto's apartment. Naruto looked at his new 4 books as he looked over the first book that told him how to make a magic circle. Pour your magic into a pencil while you draw the circle, Naruto said as the pencil in his hand was glowing a rainbow-like light as he drew the circle, but soon, he was put into a daze as his pencils started to fly over the paper. When he was done, the paper burned away, leaving the magic circle in the air. Runes encased the end of it. Next was the drawing of 4 dragons, each in a different pose. More runes met by another dragon, while in the center is a 6-winged dragon. The magic circle floated into the air before sinking into him. Naruto held up one hand as his magic circle formed over his hand as it rotated before he sent it away. Naruto reached for the next book when he knocked over one of them. It was a dark blue with a golden bat on the cover, unknown words on the front written in purple. Naruto reached down to pick it up and open it as blue flames spewed out of the book, and it started to make a flame twister. Out of the flame came a pair of pale purple upside-down wings burst out. An arrow-tipped tail swished out of the fire. The fire started to die down to show a female figure in a skin-tight black full-body corset that showed off the creature navel and the center of her breasts. The corset goes all the way down to her left leg. On her right leg, she wore a stocking that reached up to her thigh. Around her waist was a golden chain that had a golden lock, as well as the rest of her clothes have golden skulls and other golden accessories. The creature had a waist cape that was also black along with the golden attachments. Knee-high armored boots that had demonic faces in the shin was on her legs. She moved her head in a circle as her eyes opened to see that they were a bright green. Black hair swayed back and forth as she moved her head. There were horns upon her head, 2 curved around her head to the back, for more curled upwards to form a crown. Another two horns stuck out from behind her ears and bent outwards, and another set below her ears curved downwards. She had rings on both index and middle fingers. On her wrists were two golden bracelets, the one on the right and an eye-like design along with spikes, while the one on the left had a demonic face. This is the design of Lilith from Darksiders. As she stood in Naruto's apartment, Naruto got ready to form a fireball before she spoke. "May I ask your name?" she asked him. "Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said, still getting ready to attack her. "Who are you?" he asked her. "I'm Lilith," she said as she looked around Naruto's home. "Where am I?" she asked him as she walked around. "Konoha," Naruto said as he turned to him. Looking confused, "The land of fire?" he asked her. "I do not know where either of those places is," she told him, tipping her head before her eyes landed on the book that she was in. "Where did you find this?" she asked him as she held up the book. "Felder's cabin that was in the woods," Naruto said as he was still ready to attack her. "I see," she muttered before he looked deeply within Naruto and felt something. "By any chance, can you use magic?" she asked him. Naruto nodded his head as a smile formed on her face. "Good," she said as she walked over to him and stood before him and knelt to bow to him. "I, Lilith, Demoness and Mother of Demons, I would like to teach you," she said to him, shocking him. "What?" Naruto asked her as she looked into his eyes. "You are still young," Lilith said as she still was not getting up from her knee. "You will need to learn how to use more than human magic," she continued. She got up and then added, "You are currently the only mage and the chosen one of Lady Magic. You need to learn on how to unite the realms and people of them." "So you can teach me magic?" Naruto asked her. "Some magic," she admitted. "If you form a pact with me, I can teach you the demonic magics and some of the eldritch magic," she told him. Naruto thought about what magic had told him when he met her earlier and who he would have to fight for the world's fate. If that meant that he would have to make a pact with a demon to save the world, he would do so, and so he asked her, "How do I make a pact with you?" "Leave that to me," she said between her hands. A thread of energy formed between them as it made a ring that went around Naruto and Lilith. Runes formed around the ring of energy as she spoke to him. "Do you, Naruto Uzumaki, the mage the world has been waiting for, accept me as your teacher?" she asked him. "I do," Naruto said as a strand of energy formed around his left arm, and it mirrored on Lilith's arm. She held her left arm with Naruto doing the same as two strands of energy joined together, forming a knot. "Will you also let me join you as a partner in Ben when you are old enough?" she said, and as threads formed around both of their right arms. Naruto thought this out and said, "I do," as he held up his other arm to meet Lilith's, as the threads tied together like the other one. They pressed their palms together as another thread formed, this time between their chests. "Do you accept me?" Lilith asked him. And words flew through him as he spoke with his eyes turning back to gold. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, accept you as my teacher and eventually my lover." And with those words spoken, the ring started to float up. And then they both spoke at the same time, saying, "This pact has been formed between us so that we can aid both of us," as the ring started to shrink and sink into both of them. "As Lady Magic be our witness, we form this bond." The circle of energy continued to sink in as they finished. "So it is said, so it is to be done." As the energy faded, Naruto's eyes turned back to blue as he passed out from exhaustion. Lilith caught him and put him in his bed. "Good night," she whispered to him as she curled up and then fell asleep. Naruto awoke in his bed to see the demon he was talking to last night was asleep on the floor next to his bed. Seeing this, Naruto got out of bed and made breakfast for them both. As he was making breakfast, his mind went over what he had learned about yesterday. He was the only person alive that could use magic. He is the chosen one of magic herself. The Kyuubi was controlled by an Uchiha that made him attack Konoha. And the demon that was in the apartment was going to teach him how to use some magic. As he pulled his mind back to cooking breakfast for the two of them, he heard Lilith yawn as she got up. "Morning," Naruto called out to her as he started plating up the food for the both of them. As she sat down in one of the chairs by his table, Naruto placed a plate of food down for her and went to sit down. "Thank you," she said as she dug into the food, and they both ate in silence before Lilith spoke up. So what are you going to do today? She asked him. Naruto looked up and said, I will need to tell the leader of the village that you are teaching me. As he told her, she looked confused by this. Why? She asked. Last month, it came to my attention that I am one of 9 deterrents of war, Naruto answered her as she gained a look of shock. What do you mean? She asked him, a little pissed and confused that a child was deterrents of war. I am a Jinchuriki, Naruto told her as he started drinking his coffee. I am one of the 9 people in the world that hold and has their body imprison a Biju, Naruto added as he got up and put his plate in the sink along with hers. Biju? She asked, as she had not that much information about this world. There are 9 Biju in this world from the Ichibi no Shikaku to the Kyubi no Yoko, Naruto replied. They are giant monsters that are not of flesh and bone, but of chakra, Naruto continued for her. So your body houses a massive creature? Lilith asked him. Yes, the fox with 9 tails, the Kyubi no Yoko, Naruto told her. And as Konoha's Jinchuriki, I will have to tell the leader of my village that you are here, he continued for her. Very well, she said as she got up, but as she reached for the door, she asked, how does this place respond to another race? Not very well, Naruto told her as he went and got chained into an orange tracksuit. You all know the one, for those who don't know Naruto Jinin outfit. Right? She thought before a light bulb seemingly went off in her head. She walked over to her book. This can still hold me, Lilith told her student as she sealed herself in the book. Naruto looked at the book as it fell to the floor. He picked it up and made his way to see the Hokage. Hokage's office. Hiruzen was going the bane of all Kage paperwork as Naruto walked in holding a purple book. Hey Gigi, Naruto said to him. How many times do I have to tell you to knock? The Hokage asked his honorary grandson. So many times that I lost count, Naruto said with a small smile. Hiruzen gave a small laugh at that. So what can I do for you? He asked the boy. I have found a teacher that can teach me some magic, Naruto said as he looked at the book in his hands. So who is it? Hiruzen asked the young boy before he added, what are they? Well, they aren't human, Naruto said as he placed his book on the desk. That got Hiruzen on edge as he thought about any fantasy races he read about. What do they want to do in Konoha? He asked the magic user. Just to teach me, Naruto told him as he stood at the desk. I see, he said as he pulled out his pipe and thought about this. What is their race? He asked once more. She's a demon, Naruto said. Without any fear, he flicked open the book that he put on the desk as Lilith was called forth. She looked around the room, spotting points in the room where she felt someone, though she could not see them, and the early man at the desk. So you're the Hokage, she said as she looked at the Hokage. She seemingly looked into the eyes of the Hokage. His eyes were that of a proud grandfather when he looked at Naruto, but when his eyes were on her, they were the eyes of a true warrior. And you're Naruto's teacher, he replied to the demoness that was in front of him. All the Umbu was on edge as a literal demon was talking to their leader, but they all were ready to attack. What will you be teaching Naruto? The Hokage asked her as he gazed at her. Demonic magic and some eldritch magic, Lilith replied to the aged leader. Why would he need those? He asked her as he looked at the purple-skinned demon. He is going to unite everyone one day, she informed the Hokage. I was chosen to teach him of the magic and culture of the underworld and hell, she continued. Hiruzen thought of this and let it flow through his head as he asked something. Our other races will come to teach Naruto. He indicated for her to sit down. I don't know, she said as she sat down. If you don't mind, I have a question, she asked him. Yes, what is it? He replied. Why is a child of 5 years as a weapon of war? She asked him. Hiruzen looked at her, and he seemed to show his age at that question. In the hidden villages, we have Jinchuriki, but I would never send him into war, he said. Why he was made to do so, she said as motherly instinct kicked in. Lord Fourth never wanted Naruto seen as a weapon, Hiruzen told the demoness. He wanted him to be seen as a hero, he continued but added in a whisper, but none obeyed that order. As the 3 sat in silence, the Hokage remembered something. Ah yes, Naruto, he said, getting the attention of the blonde. Yes, Gigi, Naruto asked. With the information that he learnt yesterday about the fox, he said, getting a nod from the 5-year-old. The council have been pulling over all Uchiha that the last host of the Fox had been around, and well, he asked with Lilith cutting in. You need him for an ID? She asked. Yes, Hiruzen nodded. I'll try. I was a newborn then, Naruto said as he closed his eyes and tried to think of the memory. Send you magic to the brain, Lilith said, and so he did as he could see things that he had forgotten. Find the one with the one that attacked that day, Lilith's voice broke thou once more. He was flying thou memories looking for the one that was the end of his parents, the reason that he was a Jinchuriki. Until he reached it. He could not see. He could hear someone crying. No, that was him crying. He could feel someone holding him and cleaning him. They had just wrapped him in a blanket. He could hear a man's voice, ha. A man's laughter erupted out with happiness, and he could hear the tears as well. I'm a father now, he said. The next voice was a woman, Naruto. We finally meet, she said. These are my parents, Naruto thought as he tried to open his eyes. Naruto could feel that was being taken away to be put down before he was ripped from the grip of the woman that held him as he heard her scream before being silenced. Naruto's eyes opened a little so that he could get a look at the source of him being a Jinchuriki. He saw a black hood and cloak. He could see under his hood and saw short black hair and a mask that adorned his face. It had one eye hole on the right side. He could see that his eye was that of the Sharingan, Yondaime Hokage, Minato. A dark voice seemed out the mask as one was raised over Naruto. Naruto was shocked that his father was Minato Namikaze, but kept himself in his memory. Step away from the Jinchuriki, the voice said once more as Sharingan began to change to 3 stretched triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that each curve at the top around the eye to form a circle, making it similar to a pinwheel. Or else your child will die of the grand old age of a minute. The voice said once more before Naruto pulled himself out. Hiruzen and Lilith looked at Naruto as his eyes opened to see that they were gold once more. I have it, Naruto said as his eyes turned back to blue. Hiruzen nodded. Ian, he called out as an umbu in a masked dog appeared next to the Hokage. Get for me Shursui, Fugaku, and his family, he ordered the man. Yes, Hokage-sama, Ian said as he disapered. Hiruzen turned back to Naruto, looking at the photos above his door. Or, to be more accurate, the 4th picture said, why didn't you tell me? Naruto suddenly said to him. What do you mean? Don't bullshit me, Naruto interrupted him as his eyes changed once more, but this time was red with a black slit. Why didn't you tell me that my father sealed the fox in me? Naruto continued as his eyes turned back to blue, but the slit stayed. Hiruzen looked at the angry boy before him, but he would swear that there were 3 beasts next to him. The first was a wolf with silver fur. The eyes were Naruto's eyes were cerulean. Next was a Kyubi no Yoko, but not the Biju that was sealed within Naruto. No, this one was the blonde fur that matched Naruto's hair with. The tips of the tails were white. There was a white mane around the neck. The eyes were the main thing that was a beautiful bluish silver, like that of a blue moon. The last was a powerful-looking dragon. The dragon's scales were crimson, not just any type of crimson. It was Uzumaki crimson, and its eyes were the same golden color that his eyes changed to when he used magic. Hiruzen saw this as the wolf and Kyubi and on his left and right respectfully as they both looked angry at the Hokage, and the dragon was behind Naruto was ready to attack. I felt that you were not ready, Hiruzen said as the beast growled at the aged leader. Naruto looked at the leader in front of him, but as he was about to speak, Lilith spoke up. That is some aura you have, my student, she said as the beast faded as Naruto turned to her as she continued. And you are not truly human, Lilith said as she looked her student. Hiruzen and Naruto looked at her with questionable looks on their faces. What do you mean? Naruto asked her. Part of your aura is not a human aura, Lilith said as she looked in the eyes of her student. You have a godly aura, she told them. Godly aura, Hiruzen asked as the Yukio walked into the room. They looked confused about why a demon talked to the Hokage and Naruto in the room. One of his parents is a god, she said, not noticing the Uchiha that had just come in, and as the prophecy said that a child will be born from a moon and a yellow flame shadow, she continued. So the yellow flame shadow is my father, Naruto said as he was piecing together. So my mother is the moon in the prophecy? Naruto asked her. It looks like it, Lilith said as she turned to the Hokage. What did you see? She asked him. Just as Hijirin opened his before Mikoto spoke, Kushina was human, she said as the three turned to look at the Uchiha in the room finally. Then she was either punished or wanted to look human, Lilith said as she looked at the Uchiha woman. As Mikoto was going to speak, a silver light formed in the room. The morning took the form of a wolf. Demon, why have you told him? The wolf said in a female voice as it growled at Lilith. Naruto seemingly remembered the voice and looked at the wolf. It was not time for him to learn of his heritage, the wolf said once more. I only told him that he had a godly aura, Lilith told the wolf, and she watched Naruto walk over to the wolf. Naruto knelt in front of the wolf and said, Mom, is that? The wolf looked at Naruto and nestled its head on his shoulder with closed eyes. Yes, my child, she said as the wolf changed into a woman with long crimson and silver locks. She was wearing a silver parka and camouflage pants, black combat boots with the legs tucked into them on her feet, and a silver crescent moon necklace around her neck. As he looked into the eyes on her back were a silver bow and a quiver full of arrows. She opened her eyes to show that they were silver. My son, it's been so long, she said to him as she hugged her son. So you're Artemis, Lilith said as she looked at the goddess in the room. Artemis looked at the demon as she got up and stood at her full height as she gazed at Lilith. What of it? She asked. Nothing, Lilith said as she walked up to the goddess as Naruto walked out the way. It's why would one of the biggest man-haters have a child? She asked. Being a man-hater and having a child are two different things, Artemis said as her hair started to form 9 tails behind her. And the men that I will love until the end of time is my husband, son, and any grandchildren that I get in the future, she said as the tails floated behind her. Oh, I never doubted that, Lilith said as she looked at Artemis with a sweet smile. Both of them looked ready to come to blows as Mikoto looked angry. Kushina, she growled out as her Sharingan formed before they changed to look like a sakura flower. Long time no see, she said as she joined the goddess and Demonis. Shursui looked at the 3 women arguing with each other, felt something pull on his pants leg. As he looked down, he saw that it was Naruto. How did she change her Sharingan? Naruto asked. That's the Mangekyo Sharingan, Shursui said before asking, why? Fugaka said, did the Uchiha that attacked have the Mangekyo? Naruto nodded as he described the Mangekyo Sharingan in his first memory. I see, Fugaka said as he wrote it down as Ian walked forward and pulled his mask up to show his left eye. Is it like this? As his eye changed to the same eye that the first person that ever tried to kill him. Yeah, but it was the right eye, not the left, Naruto said. Ian put his mask back on, but Naruto could feel anger from him. Hokage-sama, if that person is, Fugaka said before Ian cut in. He's beard under a boulder that is 20 times his weight, and his left side was crushed, he said to the Uchiha head. Actually, Ian, Hiruzen said as the Umbu, I sent a squad of Doton users to unearth and retrieve the body only to find nothing. The room got quiet except the 3 women in the room growling at each other in the corner. Who are you talking about? Asked a little boy with black hair in the shape of a duck. Itachi looked at his little brother and said, Obito Uchiha, and was thought to have died in battle. He was also seen as a hero, Ian said as he looked at the younger Uchiha. But now he will be seen as a traitor and a nuke-nin, the Uchiha head said as he looked at the Umbu. Ian had sadness radiate off them, but before he could speak, all the men in the room heard a crash in the room. Mikoto, let me deal with this demon before I can speak with you, Artemis said as she pulled the cheeks of Lilith and Mikoto. No, you can talk to her later. I'm dealing with you now, Lilith said as she pulled at Mikoto's and Artemis's hair. Oh no, I'm talking with her now, Mikoto yelled as she pulled the ears of the demon and goddess. Oh no, Hiruzen saw the battle of the females in the room's corner. Mom, Naruto called out before it could become a whole cat fight. Artemis switched out of battle mode and seemingly teleported to her son. Yes, my little blue moon, she asked him. What did you mean that it was not time? Naruto asked her. Artemis looked at her child and said, When your father found out that I'm a goddess sealed in a human shell, I told him about the child claiming, she said as he looked at her son, and when I told him, he told me to claim you when you made Genin. Can't you do it, no? Naruto asked her. She looked at her son, seeing that he looked more like her husband, and so she nodded her head. Very well, my blue moon, she told her son. She closed her eyes above Naruto's head. A silver bow formed hovered there. That was not all, as Naruto's form started to change. And his hair gained 2 stripes. The first stripe was on the left was Uzumaki crimson, while the other was on the right was silver. Naruto's right eye changed, but it changed to a bluish silver. Artemis opened her eyes to look at her son to see that he was now the perfect mix between her and her husband. You look even more handsome, my little blue moon, Artemis said as she was ready to say something more than the sky rumbled. Artemis glared at the sky like a storm. That bastard, she muttered as she looked at the sky. This father is why I never set foot on Olympus. She yelled at the storm. Mom, what's wrong? Naruto asked his mother as the other 2 women stopped fighting. My father has called a meeting of the only son of the virgin trio has been claimed, Artemis said as he turned to look at her son. He never allowed me to see you, she said as she turned to him. Mikoto turned to her friend as the storm rumbled once more, but this time Naruto could hear a voice in the sky. Artemis, I call you to Olympus now, it said. Mom, whose voice was that? He asked her. Artemis looked at her son shocked. It's because he has ever speech, Lilith said. What was that slut? Artemis asked her. Lilith looked at the moon goddess. He has the ever speech, she repeated, or what is known as he can understand all languages. But he can't speak them, she told her. Artemis looked at her, and then her son. That was my father and your grandfather, she told him. Naruto nodded his head as she started to glow a silver light. I will be back tomorrow for your birthday along with my hunters so that you can meet your sisters, she said as the silver light faded, showing that she was gone. They all were standing in the office when Lilith brought up once more. What did you see? She asked the Hokage. Hiruzen looked at the demon and said, a wolf, 9-tailed fox, and a dragon. I see. Lilith muttered that she thought over that. Shursui walked up to the desk and asked, Hokage-sama, did you think on the idea that I can teach Naruto Uzumaki? Hiruzen looked at Naruto to see that he was glaring at the Hokage. Yes, and you may, but you got his name wrong, he told the teen. Naruto, Mikoto, and Fugaka looked shocked at that. Hokage-sama, are you sure that he is ready? Mikoto asked her leader. When I looked back into my memories, I found out who he was, Naruto said as he looked at the pictures above the door. His name is Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, Hiruzen said as he looked at Naruto, son of Minato Namikaze, he told Shursui. A few hours later, Fox's Grove. Naruto, Lilith, and Shursui were in the clearing of Fox's Grove, with Naruto physically having to hold on to him so that he would not get lost. When they got there, Shursui was teaching Naruto how to make clones, but Bunshin no Jutsu was not working with them, always looked dead. Naruto, try only use a little of your chakra for the jutsu, he asked the boy. I am using a little, Naruto said as Shursui looked at the boy and started thinking about how to help. Seeing that his student was struggling, he started thinking about another way to teach him the Bunshin no Jutsu, but then he got an idea. Maybe that will work, he thought as he crossed his index and middle fingers from both hands and summoned a clone of himself. Naruto, do what I just did and try to make a clone of yourself, he told the boy. Naruto did as asked and crossed his fingers and tried to summon a clone. He failed to summon one clone, but the whole clearing of the Fox's Grove became filled with Naruto clones. Shursui and Lilith looked over all the Naruto clones that swept over the Fox's Grove. That was impressive, Lilith said as she was surprised by this. She was bored out of her mind until she saw that Naruto summoned an army of clones. Unbelievable, Shursui muttered as he looked around him. What is it? Lilith asked Uchiha. Naruto must have twice as much chakra as someone of his age, Shursui said, but he looked confused. But that makes zero sense, as even if he had that much, he would still not make this many clones, he continued. So for the rest of his teaching time before the Uchiha meeting, Shursui had Naruto continue until he could only summon one at a time. As soon as Artemis let Olympus. Artemis walked her way to where her father was holding a meeting for the gods so that he could tell them all that one of the Virgin Three has one got a child. As she entered the room, she saw that all the other gods were sitting in their thrones with her father looking over them all. Artemis, sit down so that this meeting can start, her father said as he looked at her. He looked at his daughter, with his lighting blue eyes gazed at her, his black hair waving behind him. He was dressed in a dark blue striped suit with a white dress shirt. No, she said as she glared at him. Get this over with so that I can return to my hunt, she continued as she spat pure hate at her father. The other gods looked at the two as neither gave an inch before a woman's voice spoke up. Let's calm down now. The woman that said that had brown hair that reached her back. She was in a brown cloak. Her brown eyes pushed calmness into the room, as she was sat in the center of the room, stoking a large fire that sat there. Fine, the man said before he looked over the goods. The child that magic foretold is here now, he said as his eyes swept over all those in the room. Everyone in the room looked exhausted except for one, and she was not looking forward to this. Who is it? A man with short blonde hair asked as he looked like Artemis in facial structure, but his eyes wall sun yellow. His name is Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, Prince of the Land of Whirlpools and my son, Artemis said as she interrupted her father. The gods in the room were shocked that she said that she had a son, but Artemis ignored this and continued. He is also the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko. He is a Jinchuriki, asked a man with a short army haircut. Let us not forget that he is also the child that magic foretold, a woman with gray eyes interjected. And the son of my little sister, the blonde-haired man said as he looked ready to explode in happiness. Before Artemis could yell at him, a woman with a peacock feather in her hair spoke up. How are we going to aid him? She asked. Why should we? Artemis's father said as he looked around the room to see that they all were sending glares at him. In case you have forgotten, magic told up to give a gift to her chosen one when they are born, the gray-eyed woman said. And since you never told us of his birth, we must give our gifts to him soon, she said as she looked at the man on the throne. He is one of our demigods, so why should we gift him? Artemis's father said as he was ready to send them off. Zeus, we all agreed to it, a man with a trident said as he looked at the now named Zeus. He would become too powerful, Zeus said as he looked at the others. Please, he is an Uzumaki, Artemis said as he brought all eyes to her. To an Uzumaki family is everything. So when my son realizes that you lot are his family, he would fight from Hades and back, she continued as she turned around. As she started to walk away, she said over her shoulder, you expect us to bow to any of your children and parade them around like kings as well as to lend them power, but when one of us has a child, she stopped talking as she reached the door. We're told that they must not get too powerful, or you would kill them, she continued. What are you trying to say? Zeus asked her. What I'm saying is that all you care for is yourself and not your family, Artemis told him as she was opening the door. Everyone turned to Zeus, who was thinking about this as he turned to the woman next to him. Hera, do you think that? He asked her. Yes, my husband, she said as she pulled a peacock feather from behind her ear and wrote something in the air. Her words changed to show Naruto was with the Uchiha clan. Thank you all for gathering for me, said the man next to Naruto. Fugaku, Artemis asked as she turned around to see that there was a live feed to the Uchiha compound. You know that man, sis? The bland man asked her. Yes, that is Fugaku, the husband of the head of the Uchiha clan, Artemis said as she listened to what they had to say. Now, as you all know that a member of our clan was responsible for the Kyubi, but we have now got the name of them, he said as he was seen looking over his clan. My wife, the head of our clan will tell you, he told them. All the gods in the room could see that the moon goddess's eyes had become the eyes of a hunter ready to hunt their prey. So my hunters and I have got something fun to do, she said as she looked ready to kill. Two girls appeared next to her. The first was a teenage girl with shoulder-length, spiky black hair, electric blue eyes and freckles across her nose. She was dressed in a silvery parka and camouflage pants. The other was also a teenage girl, but she looked late teens. She had brown eyes, a slightly upturned nose, copper-colored skin. She also has long black hair. And as well, she was dressed in a silvery parka and camouflage pants. Both of them had silver circlet on their heads. They both looked be princesses. Zoe, Talia, listen well to what this woman has to say, because we are going to hunt the man that she will say, Artemis told the both of them. They both nod as they turn to the live feed. Who is it, ma'am? An Uchiha asked him. A woman next to Fugaku walked up. Here we go, Artemis muttered. My lady, Talia asked her. Just wait and see, Artemis said as they all looked confused. Now I will not mince words. It is the Uchiha hero Obito Uchiha. And if any of you useless pieces of shit so much as see him, a man that fits his description and wearing a mask that has only one eye hole that is the right eye or a Sharingan within their right eye, they are to be brought back to Konoha. Mikoto said while yelled to her clan, who jumped at her words along with the gods and hunters apart from Artemis. That is my best human friend that is not a hunter, Artemis said as she had a slight smile on her face that then turned to a frown. So it was Obito, she said. You know this, Obito? Hera asked her as she got rid of the live feed. He was on my husband's team back during the Third Great Ninja War, Artemis told her. What happened to him? The gray-eyed woman asked her. He was reported to have been killed in action, Artemis said as she looked to her hunters. I will send you back so that you can get everyone ready to hunt him down, she ordered her hunters. Yes, ma'am, Zoe said as she was sent away. Before Talia could go, Zeus walked over to her. Daughter, I have to ask you something, he asked her. Yeah, Dad, she asked him. As my child, did you feel like everyone that knew that you were my child had to treat you like a princess because of that? He asked her. Talia looked around to see that all the gods were waiting for her answer. Yes, she said as she looked down. I see, Zeus said as he could see that this was hurting her. One last question, do you think that I care for my family? He asked her. Once, I would think that you did, she told him as he gained a smile behind his beard, but now not so much if they are not Hercules or me, she continued. The smile on his face was soon gone when he looked saddened at this. I see. Thank you, he said to her as Artemis sent her back to the hunters. Under Konoha, root base. An elderly man was wearing bandages walked through the tunnels of the base as he reached a meeting room. As he sat down, 3 Umbu jumped down to talk with him. We can't get the others out of the prison that they are in, Lord Danzo, the one on the right said. I see, he said as he kept his face neutral. The Uchiha clan has dropped all want to make a coup d'etat and have put all resources in finding Obito Uchiha, the one in the middle said as Danzo took a sip of tea. But hearing that none of the Uchiha will be killed, his grip of the cup tightened enough that it started to crack. Uzumaki is now being taught by Shursui Uchiha and the Demonists to gain some knowledge in magic and chakra, the left one finished. More cracks formed over the cub in his hands. Anything else? He asked them. The Hokage has given his full backing of the Uchiha, and they have done the same for him, the left one told him. More cracks form. And the Hokage is now truly looking into any of your movements, the right Umbu informed him. Even more cracks. What does he know? Danzo asked them. The 3 Umbu looked at each other, and then to their boss as the middle one said, he has almost found the base. The cub in Danzo exploded in his hand as he made a fist. I see then, he growled out as he looked at them all. Find one of Orochimaru's old bases, move everyone there, he told them. But Lord Dan, the right one was saying before his head exploded as Danzo looked at them with pure hate. Anyone else? He asked them as he looked at the other 2. No, Lord Danzo, they said as they left the room and got everything ready to move out. He can't just leave well enough alone. He just had to look where he is. Not wanted, Danzo said to himself as he kicked the body out the way as he left the room himself. Daimyo Hiruzen, Danzo said as he would now hand seals before he walked out of the base. As he walked out, all out the base, everyone heard a sizzling to be getting louder and louder. If you had any brains, you would take out any and all of the other villages and have them joined under the banner of Konoha, Danzo said as flames started to form about him as he walked to the exit. All over the base, all members of Root was gathering everything. Scrolls, weapons, cloths, books, ink. They all get ready to move out of this one and need anything in their new base as they lit their beds on fire. But it was not just the beds that were set on fire. It was anything made from wood. The sizzling was getting louder now, and the crackling of burning would join it. How long until Hiruzen and his umbu get here? He asked a member of his route. They are about half an hour away by the time the base is destroyed. We will be long gone, they said back to him. I see, Danzo said as the fire was now licking at the stone walls as the wooden bridges were now on fire. If I will rule over Konoha, I must do what needs to be done. In Danzo's office, and the flames are now on a picture. The picture was of him when he was younger and with his two sensei. His team was also there. Hizuzen, Koharu, and Hamura. Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage and the man that Hiruzen is following and trying to bring peace to a world of chaos, lies, and death. A fantasy. Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage and the man that Danzo was following after and was said to lead by strength and will. And that is what he is doing. I will purge all of Konoha of this weakness. The flames overtook the first Hokage. Then I must raise Konoha. The flames now engulfed the second. Now, my old friend, I will take Konoha, and I will have it be a group of warriors, not a village of cowards. The flames then took the rest of the base as the sizzling took its peak. Before. Boom, boom. A large explosion erupted down the base. Konoha, Hokage's office. Hiruzen was in his office and was waiting for the rest of his umbu to arrive so that they could confront Danzo. He had forced Naruto to take his first kill too early. Naruto was only 6 years old. And just as the last of the umbu entered the room, everyone heard a large noise throughout the room. And now the village. Boom, boom. Everyone moved out of the village. If from where we reported Danzo was, Ian said. Move out, was all Hizuzen told them as they went to check it out. Fox's Grove. Lilith stood in front of her student as she pulled a book out of the air with Shursui nearby watching in. To start our first magic lesson, you will learn how to use Kido, which splits into 3 things: Bakudo, Heido, and finally barriers and seals, she told him. Naruto nodded as he thought about his as Shursui spoke up. He will be good at the last thing as he is an Uzumaki, he told her. Why is that important? She asked. Shursui looked uneasy as he said, it's the reason that Naruto is not with any family. What? Naruto asked him. Shursui was quiet before saying, during the Second Great War, your clan was attacked by Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri because of their sealing techniques, he told them. To get her student's mind off the death of his clan, she said, the first step of this is to clear your mind. Naruto nodded as he tried to clear it. Let me help, the QB said as he gave something for Naruto to focus on. Can you make a clone for me? Lilith asked Shursui. The Uchiha said nothing but made a clone. For the first, I will teach you how to use the first of the Bakudo, she told him as she turned to another page of her book. Now point your index and your middle finger of any hand at your target, she told him as she pointed at the Uchiha clone. Naruto did as asked as he pointed his fingers at the clone of Shursui. Now pull your arm to the left, she told him. He did so, and she nodded. And when you do call out the spell Bakudo number 1, sigh, and then the spell will be done, she finished. Naruto gathered his magic as his eyes turned to gold as he pointed his middle and index fingers at the clone of Shursui and called out Bakudo number 1, sigh. The clone's arms became locked behind his back, and he looked confused. What just happened? It asked Lilith. She looked at the clone and said, that was the spell. Now for the next spell is called Eldritch Blast, and I need Oi to call on our bond to do this. She showed Naruto how the stance that he must take for the spell, as one of her hands was reaching out to grab something, as a burnt orange energy formed in her hand before it turned into an energy blast that shot out of her hand. Now do what I did to the clone, she told Naruto. Naruto turned to the clone and said, I'm sorry, as he did the same stance as Lilith as the burnt orange energy formed in his hand before he shot it out at the clone. Once the blast hit the clone, it turned to a cloud of smoke as Shursui griped at his chest, griping at a phantom pain. Well, that was something, he said as he looked shocked at the effect. Now we can move to Heido, Lilith said as she smiled at Shursui. Now for this one. All you need to do is point an index finger and then call out the spell, which is Hado number 1. Show, she finished. Naruto nodded as he pointed out his left index finger at a tree as a small blue ball of energy shot out of his finger and hit a branch of the tree. The branch was snapped off and rolled over to Naruto. Don't throw away that bit of wood, she told Naruto. Why? Shursui asked as he looked at the bit of wood. He can make a wand from the wood, make a staff from it, use it as spell components, and many other things, Lilith said. She then turned to another page of her book and walked over to arching branches that looked like an entrance. The next is a barrier called Kaiman, but this barrier can only work with an opening to somewhere, Lilith told him. Naruto walked up to the arch as Lilith read out, hold up your hand, send out your magic to make a barrier. He held up as light shimmered and reflected light, like a mirror before an energy wall formed in the arch. Lilith walked over and knocked on it, and it was a bit flimsy but solid. Well done, Naruto, she said, but you will need to work on it, she told him. Naruto nodded his head as he for hours canceled and then made more Kaiman over and over until he made to see if he could make it stronger and stronger. When it was strong enough to hold someone in a room, Lilith moved on to another spell. Next, we're going to go over some bard spells, and right now, I can only teach you 2 of them, Lilith said to him. What are they? Naruto asked her as Shursui looked confused. Well, to put it simply, bards were the masters of music, and well, you will need to sing, dance, and play instruments for their spells to work, she told him. Oh, was what both males said. So Shursui makes a clone. She turned to Naruto's other teacher. He did so as she turned to Naruto. Now let your magic flow to your vocals as you sing to the original, she told him. Jimmy's in the back with a pocket of high. If you listen close, you can hear him cry. As Naruto sang to the original, he could feel strength come into him and boost him. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Sing it. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Way down below, way down below. Shursui and his clone started to fight as they kept the fight to tie just as Shursui managed to disarm his clone of a kunai that it had taken out. Judy's in the front seat picking up trash. Living on the dole. Gotta make that cash. Won't be pretty. Won't be sweet. She's just sitting here on her feet. The clone jumped over Shursui and pulled out his sword as Shursui joined him as his body was now moving faster and faster thanks to the music and magic coming out of Naruto's mouth. Sing it. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Go. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Sing. Oh Lord, tell us so. We belong way down below. Oh Lord, tell us so. We belong way down below. Way down below, way down below. Way down below, way down below. Chakra coated Shursui's Tonto as both of them continued fighting, and the clone was now on the back foot, and it replaced itself with a rock. I've had better days, man. I've seen better days. I've had better ways, man. I know better ways. He cut thou the rock and ducked under a chop at his neck, and swiped the legs of his clone as his movements became more fluid. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The devil's knocking at your door. Caught in the eye of a dead man's lie. Start your life with your head held high. Now you're on your knees. With your head hung low. Big man tells you where to go. Tell him it's good. Tell him okay. Don't do a goddamn thing they say. At each number that Naruto said, Shursui was landing punch after punch into his clone. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Oh Lord, tell us so. We belong way down below. Way down below, way down below. Way down below, way down below. The clone tried to fight back against the onslaught of the fists, but it was now up against a tree. I've seen better ways, man. I know better ways. I've seen better days, man. I've had better days. As the clone tried to get back into the fight with the original, it soon jumped over Shursui to try and attack him from behind. Gina's in the back with a pocket of high. If you listen close, you can hear the crying. Shursui pivoted around, grabbed his clone's foot, and threw it high in the air. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Oh Lord, tell us so. We belong way down below. Oh Lord, heaven knows. We belong way down below. Oh Lord, tell us so. We belong way down below. He jumped up after the clone, grabbed the leg of the clone, and flung it at the ground. Way down below, way down below. Way down below, way down below. Shui threws his tanto at his clone that pierced it through the chest as he dispelled it. Once Naruto was done singing, his eyes turned back to blue and silver blue as it looked like Shui was now coming down from the fight with his clone. That was fun, he said as he laughed. Good singing, there little man, he told Naruto. You are now out of mana, so read these 2 books while you regain some mana, Lilith told him as she handed Naruto a potions book and a book on something called automail. And so he read the book, and when he reads it, Lilith started to walk around the fox's grove. It's only been a day, and why am I feeling like this, she thought to herself. She, Lilith, the mother of demons, was in love. He's human and a demigod, she thought as she looked at Naruto, who was reading the book on automail. He has godly blood flowing down him, but, she says in her head as she looks at him. I love him, she said softly as neither of the boys heard her. Then she remembered what Artemis said earlier in the day. His birthday is tomorrow. What shall I get him? She asked herself as she looked at the boy. She saw Shui walking over to her as she turned to him. Hey, the Hokage wanted to ask you something, but with him going after a rat of a man, so he asked me to ask you, he said to her. She raised an eyebrow as she looked at him. And what is that? She asked him. With tomorrow being Naruto's birthday, there will be a large amount of security around him so that he is safe, and he wants you to help protect him, Shui said. This shocked her. Why is that? She asked. Every year, he is beaten and sent to hospital with broken bones on his birthday, Shui told her with a sad look on his face. Why would they do that? She asked as anger seeped into her voice. The day of his birth was the day that the Kyuubi attacked Konoha and was sealed in him, as you know, he said as she nodded at that. Well, no one that was younger than 5 on that day was not told about what happened, and if they told someone then they would be executed, Shui told her. Why is that? She asked as she looked at her student. Lord Third and Lord Fourth wanted him to have a childhood, but some people on Konoha Council want him either dead or as a weapon of war, the Uchiha told her. I knew about the weapon part, she said as she was shocked. They looked at Naruto continue reading the book to see that the sun was almost down. As soon as night falls, they will strike him, Shui told them. They saw him close the book and get up as he looked into the sky to see that his 7th birthday was on the horizon, along with his most hated day of the year. October 10th. Before he could pull out Lilith's book, Shui held up his hand. Lord Hokage has said that you can protect yourself and that the village needs to know about your magic, he told him as both he and Lilith walked over to him. Then why am I keeping Lilith out of her book? Naruto asked him. Lilith looked at her student and the one she loves and told him, I have been asked to help protect you. And so, all 3 of them left the Fox's Grove with Naruto behind them as they walked to the village. When they reached the village, some members of Umbu joined them as Naruto now had a full circle of protection from people that would try to hurt him. And they made some headway to a holding place where Naruto could rest for his birthday. A large crowd of people stood before them, halting their movement. Hand over the demon brat, and we'll get along fine, a man yelled at them as he had chains in his hands. No can do, Ian said as he slowly drew his sword as some other Umbu and Shui joined him. Come now, if we get rid of him, we can have a parade that Lord Fourth would have wanted, another man yelled at them. Now you know that's a lie, a woman with a cat Umbu mask said. They then scowled at them for not letting them get Naruto. So a man with a pitchfork ran at the Umbu with his drawn back and pushed it forward, trying to get Naruto on the other end. But the woman with the cat mask was too fast as she cut down the pitchfork and slashing at the man and serving his arm. And so with that, they all ran forward to try to hurt and kill Naruto. But they were all cut down by Umbu, Shui, and was burned by hellfire from Lilith. As they fought, someone managed to get out to attack Naruto, but Naruto kicked them in the face and knocked them out. Ian grabbed some shuriken and cucked them into the crowd as they dug into their targets. Shui turned on his Sharingan as he moved out of the crowd and cut down some people. Now the people who were taken down were not killed just out of the fight. Or so they thought as the man that had his arm cut off got back up and ran at a now open Naruto. As he ran at the blonde, a knife in his hand stabbed the boy in the chest. The man had a savage smile on his face before it was replaced by shock as the boy became smoke. "We've been had," he yelled out before getting eternity silenced by Ian as the Umbu removed his head from his body. Some of the other Umbu looked to see that some of the crowd in the back went off to try and find the Jinchuriki as some Uchiha joined them to arrest the group. East side of Konoha. Naruto was running at his top speed to try and get to his safe haven as he could feel some of his mana return to him, and he could feel some strength from the full moon that was high in the sky. He knew that he was only a few minutes away from there when he heard that a fight had begun behind him, so he pushed himself to go faster. "I can do this," he thought to himself as he kept running and did not look behind him as he knew that if he did, he might not make it to his safe place. But that is when he felt a phantom pain in his chest, and the memories came to him, and so he ran and tried to push himself to go faster. So he rounded a corner, and he knew that he was now only a few seconds away from the place that he would be safe from all danger. He felt a pull from the mountain as more of his mana returned to him, but then he heard some dreaded words from behind him. "I found him," someone yelled out as he did the one thing that he must never do. He looked behind him, and he saw something that he had feared, and it was that people were running at him with a lot of weapons to try and kill him, and so he ran, but he had been running for a long time, and he was running out of steam. As he ran, he felt something fly in at him, and then he was hit and pierced by some shuriken in his back, but he kept running. Someone threw a stone at him that downed him, and as he tried to get up, they had just got to him, so he ready to fire blast ball. He shot the ball at some people that taken out some of the group as someone with a sword ran at thou his shoulder right and put him back on the ground with the blade going down Naruto's arm and into the ground. Naruto placed his hand on the chest of one who held the sword and shot out an eldritch blast that pushed out the person killing them and sending the body flying. Another person with a sword buried in Naruto's left leg. The person that did that grabbed Naruto's other arm and stabbed a knife through the hand and into the ground, though some did the same for the other leg. The man who had the chain yelled at the Umbu with the chains in his hand as he wrapped them around Naruto's right arm and his left leg. He handed the other end of the chains to someone, and they started to pull. "Hey!" Naruto yelled out as he could feel that his arm and leg get torn off. Thunder started rumbling in the sky. Lakes all over Konoha was becoming raging like a stormy sea. Naruto had tears falling from his eyes as he gazed at the moon and cried out, "Mommy!" as a sickening tearing sound filled the area and the sound of spilling of blood. They had torn off his right arm and the bottom part of his left leg. Before they could hurt him more, a horde of arrows came raining from the sky, piercing into the ones that had hurt Naruto. Wolves ran over to guard the bold demigod. Some tried to run away, but lightning stuck in front of them, and the ground rose to cage them all in. And as they turned to the Jinchuriki, they found people protecting him. A man in a black and gray suit with long black hair, a large black beard, and lightning blue eyes. A woman with peacock feathers in her hair, a long peacock feather cape, and a golden dress had silver beaded hair and green eyes. Another man stood with them as he had black hair, a neatly trimmed black beard, a deep tan, and sea green eye. Tommy Bahama shirt with coconuts and parrots all over it, and swords on in his hands was a golden trident. There was another woman, but she had long flowing blonde hair with brown eyes and a long flowing green dress. A man with a short army hair cut, and he had black sunglasses that covered his eyes, and he was dressed in leather clothes. A woman dressed in armor has blonde hair and gray eyes, and an owl on her shoulder. A man with short blonde hair that seemed to glow with blue eyes was dressed in blue jeans and an orange t-shirt. A woman with crimson hair, purple eyes, a silver parka, camo combat trousers, and a bow in hand with an arrow notched. Next was a man with a pair of red overalls and a bushy beard. Then there was a beautiful woman that looked drop-dead gorgeous, and she was dressed in a red backless dress with long hair flowing elegantly behind her. A man dressed in a suit with short trimmed hair gelled back, and on his feet were sneakers with wings on them. Then there was a man with a leopard shirt and purple shots. His hair was curly and black, and his eyes were purple. Then there was a pale man in a black toga with a silver skull on it to hold it on him. His hair and eyes were black. The last was a woman dressed in a full brown cloak. Her black hair was flowing out of it, and her brown eyes. Healing around them were girls of varying ages, with some holding Naruto, and the ones that were not holding Naruto had a bow similar to the woman with crimson hair, and they were dressed identically to her. There were also wolves snarling at them as well. The Olympians have come to Konoha, and they are pissed. As the mob turned to the people that were defending the crippled Jinchuriki, "WW, what do you think you're?" One of them yelled as lightning fell from the sky. The lightning hit the person that spoke. He was dead before he hit the floor. Silence, the man in the suit said quietly, but his voice rang out through the mob. He raised a hand to show that in his hand was a lightning bolt. "You have done a grave injustice," he continued as his blue eyes glowed in the night. Before he could fire more lightning at them, Hiruzen, the Umbu, Lilith, and the Uchiha appeared onto the Shan. Hiruzen looked around to see a large chunk of the mob caged with earth and lightning. Kushina was with girls that wore the same clothes as her, some wolves, some people that he had never seen before, but one of them looked like Kushina, if only male with bold hair, and the thing that made him ready to kill the mob. Naruto, who was missing an arm and the lower part of one leg. In one swift movement, he turned around, summoned a massive staff in his hands, and was walking over to kill them all. The Umbu was no different as they all drew their swords and joined their leader. The mob tried to move back, but they soon hit the back of their cage. They all could feel eyes on them from above them as some looked to see all the Uchiha clan, be it elders, civilians, or ninja. They all had the Sharingan on and looking down at them. Before any of the mob could be killed, Lilith spoke up. "Sadly, and we can't kill all of them," she said, stopping the advancement of the ninja. "What do you mean, demon?" the man in the suit asked her. She looked at the man as confusion flashed out her eyes for a few seconds before it faded. "This village will need most of them to carry going for another day," she said, getting some begrudging nods from the Umbu. "She's right. We own a lot of businesses of Konoha," someone yelled. Before more could speak up, Hiruzen caught on to something. "But if we sign over everything that they own to Naruto," he said as a dark smile formed on his face. "He could take back everything that they took from his mother and father," Mikoto said as Artemis launched the arrow that was in her bow, killing someone. "And then we can give out their punishment," the pale man said as his dark eyes sent out waves of chills through the mob. "You have it in one, Lord Hades," Lilith said as she bowed to the man. None of them spoke up or moved to do anything, so the woman in the red dress walked up as her pink eyes glowed. "Now you will sign over all your money, companies and possessions to Naruto Namake's Uzumaki," she said as all their eyes glazed over and walked over to an Uchiha who was writing all of this down. Naruto, struggling to stay awake, looked at the woman and asked, "What was that spell?" Lilith looked to her student as she could see pain all over him. "It's called Charm Speak, and you are in no way ready for that spell," she told him as he chuckled a bit. "He can learn Charm Speak," the man that looked like Artemis asked her. "Yes, Lord Apollo. He can like you powers of prophecy. He can use his magic to see into the future when he has learnt how," Lilith told him as they watched the men sign all their things over to Naruto. Naruto looked at the crowd and then at his, no longer attached, arm and lower leg. Could it work? He thought as he pulled himself up. "What are you doing?" the fox asked him. "Numb the pain. I have an idea," Naruto told his furry prisoner. "Okay, just don't die," he told the blonde. The air around Naruto got cold as all the ninja turned to him to see that red chakra was bubbling around his wounds. "Is the fox healing him?" Apollo asked Artemis. She shook her head. "No, my son is show his Uzumaki stubbornness, and the fox is going with it," she told him as she turned to her son. "Right, if that summon seal that I read was right, that all I need to do is this," Naruto thought as he put 2 fingers in the blood that dripped from his leg and drew something on the floor. The woman in the armor walked over to see his drawing a seal on the floor. "What seal is that?" she asked herself as she looked at it. Artemis walked over and looked at it. "A Kage Bunshin Kuchios Fuin. It allows him to summon a Kage Bunshin that he has sent out," she told her. "He only has one other Kage Bunshin out there, and it was getting something from a hut in the forest, Lilith told her. They all turned to Naruto, who had finished the seal and raised his hand and slammed it down on the seal with a yell of Kage Bunshin Kuchios, as the original called another Naruto from a puff of smoke. In this Naruto's hands was a bag full of books, stones, tools, and beads. Okay, boss, why'd you OH Mother's Moon, what the fuck happened to you? The clone said before freaking out. Original looked at his clone and smiled. Yeah, I'm going to need the beads, he said as he held out his left hand. The clone nodded his head as he put the bag down and pulled out beads that seemed to be made from some bone. See ya, the clone said as Naruto dispelled it. Hades looked at Naruto and then at the beads. I see you will use a spirit call, he said. The blonde looked at him and nodded as he got ready to make the incantation of the spell. Most of the Uchiha turned to the blonde as his eyes turned to gold as he raised his arm. Remembering the names that he had to say, he started speaking. Spirits in the darkness, if you can hear my beads, Naruto said as he swayed the beads in his hand. The noise seemed to ring out thou everyone. If you can see their glow, the beads gave off a light green glow as those that were under Charmspeak had finished signing over everything to Naruto looked and listened to what he said and what he was doing. Listen to my voice. I am calling for Winry Rockbell. The air that was around him became still as white whips of energy started to form around him. Stand up and discover the path from your world to mine. Let my voice be your guide. The whips merged into a body that resembled a person with glowing green ethereal eyes with Naruto's eyes glowing silver, but they kept their golden color, like golden suns on a clear day. Cross the threshold. Now, spurt of Winry Rockbell, rise up and take form. Naruto finished as he swept the beads in an arc. The person formed from the wipes turned into a woman. She has big dark blue eyes and long light blonde hair tied in a long ponytail, with long bangs falling on the front and a fringe directed to the left. She was wearing a beige jumpsuit down and tied to her waist, exposing a black tube top. On her hands were brown gloves, and upon her feet were black boots. Oh, and she was see-thou as she was a ghost. As the woman looked around confused, Hades started clapping. Well done, well done. I must say you have chosen right, grandnephew, he said as the woman turned to him. The woman turned to the man and bowed to him. Lord Hades, why have I been summoned? She asked him. Hades pointed to Naruto, who was ready to use another spell. There will be no need for you to use that spell, Hades told him as Naruto turned to him. Why is that? He asked. It is my domain that she resides in, Hades said as he reached out a hand, but stopped as Naruto put his hand in the bag next to him and pulled out a rock that had skulls on it. Is this payment enough? He said as his eyes turned back to blue and bluish silver. A small lurcher clump will be more than enough for her soul to return to the living, Hades said as he held out his hand and Naruto gave him the stone. But what wish should I grant you? Hades said as he crushed the stone in his hands as the woman known as Winry Rockbell took in a breath of air and became solid. Wish? Naruto asked him. Lilith walked up to him as Winry looked shocked as she rejoined the living. All races, be it gods, demons, or elves, even humans saw that they would give up on you with a gift or a wish, she told him. But the only thing that we cannot give is more power. Artemis took over as she looked at the man in the suit. So Lady Magic went out to the kingdoms, some of them, and some chose people to aid you in the coming battle or some to teach you. Like me, Lilith said as she pointed at herself. But each of them also swore that no matter if there is someone of the same race teaching you or that person is from the same kingdom, the kingdom must give you a gift, Artemis told him. But with the gods it was different. They have to give you a single gift or grant you a wish each, Lilith continued from the moon goddess. Naruto nodded his head at this as he thought about this. Then he looked at Winry and got an idea. Hey, Naruto called out to her. Winry looked over to Naruto and was in shock that someone they young was missing an arm and a lower part of a leg. Why, she asked shakily. I have read about automail, so I know that you can fit it for me, but who do you think can help you? He asked her with a kind smile on his face. My grandmother Pinako Rockbell, she told him as he nodded and turned to Hades. Naruto turned to Hades, opened his mouth before Lilith spoke into his ear. Lord Hades, god of the dead and riches, lord of the underworld, I ask of thee for the wish of Pinako Rockbell to return to the living. So mote be it, Naruto said to his granduncle. Hades smiled as he held out his hand as a short elderly woman with brown hair and was small. Glasses over her blue eyes, on her feet, were sandals. She was in a green dress with a white apron. As the woman known as Pinako was coming back to life, they turned back to the people giving Naruto everything they own. As the last man was finished, the Uchiha had put them all in cuffs. Now it's time you all paid your dues, Hiruzen said as the woman with the peacock feather walked over to him. Why don't we each take a few of them? She said as plans formed in her head, so that they know never to mess with the child of a god, she said as the mob looked confused. Naruto Uzumaki is the son of Kushina Uzumaki, or Artemis goddess of the moon, and Minato Namikaze your Yondaime Hokage, Hiruzen told them as they all looked over to the child that they had tried to kill. But they saw not the Jinchuriki that they tried to kill, but the younger form of Yondaime Hokage. Artemis, you can go first since they hurt your child and has disrespected your husband, the man in the suit said. The wife of their beloved Yondaime Hokage walked up to them and pointed at 5 of the fattest ones there. You 5 will do, she said as the 5 glowed silver before getting turned into pigs. Her eyes glowed as the pigs were teleported to somewhere before she walked back to her child. Apollo, you next, the man said as the blonde walked up and pulled out a lyre and plucked all 9 of its strings as 9 of the men fell over. Wow, and Umbu said as she looked at the 9 men checking them over. What is it? Hiruzen asked her. They all died of heart attacks, she told him. At the same time, he asked her. She just nodded her head. I will go next, the man in the suit said as he pointed the finger at a group of 12. Can they be moved away from the others? He said as some Umbu indeed moved them from the rest of the captured mob. Good, he said as a gigantic lightning bolt fell from the sky, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. That was Zeus, king of the Olympian gods and father to Artemis, Lilith told Hiruzen as the Hokage walked over. Demon, was all Zeus said as he walked back. She went and picked up Naruto's arm that was torn off. So they moved a group of 20 over for her to do what she wanted as she started to cook the arm in her hand with some of her hellfire before placing it in with the 20. Naruto, I need you to focus on the arm over there for me. Please, Lilith said as she pointed at the arm as she walked back over to him, and seeing him focus on it, she continued, no call on your magic, can call out Hado number 96. It okay so, she told him as he nodded his head. Naruto looked over at the men that he begged over the years to give him mercy, and so he did as his teacher had asked. He called on his magic as red cracks formed over the thing that was once his arm, with a mighty shout of Hado number 96. It okay so, as a brief shockwave shot out that was then followed by a massive pillar of red fire erupting from the ground in the shape of a katana's tip. This spell is known as a spell of sacrifice, so when you learn how to regrow your limbs, you can only use this spell once more, she said as she pointed to the part of his leg. Naruto nodded his head as his grandfather called up the man that held the trident. He just pointed his trident at a few of the tied-up mob before they were teleported away. Hera, you are next, Zeus said as the woman with the peacock cape walked up. I think that their marriages should be no longer, Hera said as she clicked her fingers. A green thread formed as it shot through about half of them as the thread turned red and flew to another person, or, in the case of one man, 20 people. I think that I shall go next, the woman in the red dress said as she walked up. Very well, Aphrodite, Zeus told her as she did something similar to what Hera did, put instead of green the thread was pink. The thread that came flying out was a lime green before it followed the trail of the red thread. Now you can no longer find love, and if you even try, you will lose it the moment it starts, she told them. As she walked back, the shock at what she had done was over all of their faces. Demeter, Zeus said as the woman in the green dress walked up as she drew a circle in the air as 10 of them fell into the ground before she stepped back. Hestia, Zeus said as the woman in the brown cloak walked up and formed a small ball of fire in her hands. She then thrust her hands out as the same burnt 12 of them to ashes. Athena, it's your turn, Zeus said as the woman dressed in armor walked up to the ninja that was in the group. Your wisdom will do him just, she said as a book formed in her hands that flung itself open as the pages started turning on their own as writing form on each page with jutsu and fighting styles. She walked back and gave Naruto the book. That is my gift to you, young spellsmith, she told him. Ares, make them hurt, the king of the gods said. Oh, I will, he said as the 19 ninja was teleported away somewhere. Why will be my training dummies for a while, he said with a dark smile on his face. Hephaestus, Zeus called as the man in overalls walked up. He pulled out a hammer, grasped the one that tore off Naruto's leg, and repeatedly hit him in the head with his hammer. The man was begging for his life, just like how Naruto had done time and time before. Again and again, as sickening cracks were heard as the man's brains were scattered all over the ground. Hephaestus dropped the man and made it a point at the cave in his chest as he looked at the rest of them. Now all of them was in tears running down their faces at the punishment that was indeed awaiting them. Hermes, give them hell, Hera told him as the man with the winged shoes grabbed 8 of them and flew them through a portal before he returned a few minutes later without them. I see you took them to the astral sea, Lilith said as she sniffed the air. Made sure that I fed them to an astral dreadnought, he said as he walked back to the others. Dionysus, your turn, Zeus said as he as the man in the leopard shirt walked up, and the same as Demeter as 10 of them fell out of the portal that he had made. The Uzumaki clan now has a vineyard that was once these men, and know that is not my gift, he told them before looking at Zeus. Fine, Hades, you are the last god to deliver some punishment, Zeus said as the lord of the underworld walked up. Hades let out a whistle as the sound of feet hitting the ground rang out through the air from the shadows. What came frightened the tied-up mob? They were black hounds with bone spikes running down their backs, with a liquid fire dripping from their mouths. Take them a lot, Hades said as he pointed at a small lot of 13 of them, and make sure that they are sent to Tartarus, he told the hounds. The hounds growled as they jumped and dragged the men into shadows. Their screams could still be heard for a while before fading. The Umbu was the next ones up as they each out-downed members of the mob, and since there were only 20 members of Umbu, they only cut down 20 members of the mob. It was then the Uchiha clan's turn to move in for their attack on the mob, but they only took out 15 of them. Hiruzen walked up to the last 5 and told them, I think a public execution would serve as a message just fine, Hiruzen said as he looked at Zeus. I am all for it, Zeus said as he looked at the last 6 men. And with that, the 160 members of the mob that tried to kill Naruto was now 6, and when the next day had shown, he would be their last. As the Umbu took them away, the gods turned back to Naruto. You still need a gift from 12 of us, Apollo said as the boy. As Naruto nodded his head, Hephaestus spoke up. I can build you some automail, he told the boy. Naruto thought of this as he looked at the stump of his arm and then at the stump of his leg. What do you think? He asked the fox. Instead of the god building the arm and leg for you, have him give the 2 women the materials to build it and allow it to use chakra, the QB told him. Lilith walked over and whispered to him, were you agree or not? You must use his titles when talking to the gods. For Hephaestus, he is god of fire, forges, sculpture, metalworking, stone masonry, carpenters, metallurgy, artisans, and volcanoes, lord of craftsmen and smiths, and then say, so mote be it. He nodded to his demon teacher and looked to the god of the forges and said, Lord Hephaestus, god of fire, forges, sculpture, metalworking, stone masonry, carpenters, metallurgy, artisans, and volcanoes, lord of craftsmen and smiths, I ask of thee not to build the automail, but to aid in gaining the materials for both rock bells to build it, and for them to allow the automail to use chakra, so mote be it. Very well then, he said as he clicked his fingers as crates of ingots, bolts, wires, and other things. Winry looked over the things that the god had summoned. We can use these, she squealed as she opened some of the crates. To build this young man an arm and lower leg, her grandmother told her as she looked at the blonde. Artemis raised both her hands to her mouth and bit bother her thumbs, as a golden liquid dripped down her thumbs as she slammed them down on the ground, and yelled out, Kuchios no Jutsu, and was followed by 2 large puffs of smoke. The first was a massive red octopus that was the size of an elephant with a moor over its tentacles and had 8 ink brushes on its back. While the other was the size of a Wolfshire horse, it had glistening silver fur. On its left leg was a large katana. The octopus looked around as it spotted the wolf that was doing the same. "Janami," the octopus asked the wolf as it sounded male. The wolf looked over to the octopus and said, "Jwako," as it sounded female. They both looked behind them to see someone that they never thought they would ever see. "Kushina," they asked her. "Long time no see you too," Artemis said to both of the animals as she gained a smile on her face. "What can we do for you?" Janami asked her as she looked around. Artemis looked to her son. "We need to take my son somewhere that he can get medical treatment," she told them. "Oh, and my name is Artemis," she continued as they looked at her. The wolf looked at her and then walked over to the wounded blonde. "What is your name, young prince?" she asked Naruto. "Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki," he answered her. Janami looked him over as she nodded his head. "Is he ready to summon the wolves and occupy?" she asked Artemis. "He turns 8 in 3 hours," she told her. "You were younger, or your body was," Jwako said as he gently lifted up Naruto with his tentacles. She looked thoughtful before turning to Hiruzen and asked him, "What do you think? Is he ready for the Uzumaki clan summoning contracts?" The Hokage looked at the young boy that was getting lifted onto the wolf. "When he regains his limbs, then let him sign them," he said as the girls were aiding him with steadying him. "Then we can wait then," Janami said as she set her pace slow, so it was not to let Naruto fall off. And so they started to make their way over to Konoha Hospital. Konoha Hospital. After getting Naruto to the hospital with the Umbu and the girls dressed like Artemis threatened the hospital staff to heal them. Once Naruto was in the Ben Winry, and Panako was set to work with them measuring his still attached arm and lower part of his leg. "Okay, it will take us a few days to make your arm and lower leg," Panako said to him. Naruto nodded his head at that as he thought about this. "Can you do my arm first?" he asked her. "We can fit both of them by the end of the week," she told him. "Oh," Naruto said as he looked at her. "But the main problem is that we need to give the prosthetics the ability to use chakra," Winry said as she looked through medical books. "From what I remember from my student, there are 52 chakra points in each arm, and from the knee down, there are 32, Hiruzen told the two of them. "So there need to be points in the prosthetics that will need to hold chakra," Winry said as she looked over the medical book in her hand. As she looked it over, she grabbed a mannequin. "So there needs to be points here," she muttered as she grabbed a marker and started placing dots and lines over it. Artemis looked to be in thought for a few seconds. "Doesn't Suna use puppet arms as prosthetics with chakra threads?" she asked an Umbu medic. The Umbu nodded his head as he turned to the moon goddess. "That's right. But for the chakra to travel to the hands, they use ninja wire," he said as he walked over to Winry and pulled out some wire. "Looks like I'm wrong," Panako said as she looked through the parts next to her. "Why's that, Granny?" Winry asked as she turned to look at her grandmother. She turned around, holding a nearly constructed arm. "We only need to apply the wire and something to act as chakra points," she told her granddaughter. Winry walked over and looked the arm over. "Is there a leg as well?" she asked her. Panako handed her the arm as she dug in the crate for a leg. "Here it is," she said after a minute of digging. A girl with ginger that was dressed like Artemis walked up and asked, "So you can do the fitting today?" "Yes, it looks like it," Phoebe, Artemis said as she walked over to her son, who seemed to be staring off into space. "What does he have to say?" she asked him. Naruto jumped as he turned to her. "He says that when I get the arm and leg, he will flood it with chakra so that it can become the same as a normal arm and leg," he told her. She nodded her head as she said, "Thank you for caring about him, Kyubi." Naruto's eyes clouded over for a bit before he said that he does not need thanks from an insignificant creature, as Artemis burst into laughter at that. "Oh, he will never change," she said as she wiped a tear from her eyes. "What was it like for you?" Naruto asked her. She looked to be in thought for a second. "It was okay, I guess," she told him. Winry and Panako opened up the arm and leg and started adding wiring to it. "So no one beat you or tried to kill you?" Naruto asked her. "No, no one beat me, but tried to kill me," There was a war, Artemis told him as he nodded his head. She moved to a seat next to him as they started to talk about random topics. After a few hours talking, Pinako and Winry walked over to them. "Are you ready?" she asked him. "Get ready to apply anesthetic," Winry said as she moved closer. "No," Naruto said as Winry moved closer with a needle. "What?" she asked him. "I'll do it without the anesthetic," Naruto said as he looked around at the shocked faces. "Besides, the QB would not let it work anyway," he told them. Artemis looked at him and saw the human form of herself and Lady Mito before she held the QB, her doing the same, and gave a small smile. "My brave little blue moon," she said as she held his hand as Pinako and Winry moved to fit the mounting for the arm and lower leg. "I will be here throughout all with you," she told him. He nodded as he could peel the skin around there. "The arm was. Have located the nerves endings from the arm," Winry said aloud. Naruto closed his eyes as Pinako did the same for his leg. "Have located the nerves endings from the leg." Two Umbu walked up, and both replied, "Have located the chakra network and linked chakra points from the arm/leg." Naruto then felt the cold metal placed on him as he reopened his eyes. "I'm ready," he said. They attacked wrenches to bolts on the casing for the arm and leg, and both women nodded to each other before. They had now fastened the casing to his upper body and lower left leg. Naruto gripped his mother's hand with all his might as he let out another scream as they tightened it once more. "You can do it, kid," the QB said to him as it tried to numb the pain for his host. But it was not working as he could feel that his nerves were on the end of the sun. "Hosing units attached," both of the women said as they moved the arm and leg over to the bed. Winry moved the arm up with the help of an Umbu. "The arm will be the first one," she told him. They got a sling ready to hold the arm when they attached it. They sat him up and called out, 1, 2, 3, and on 3, they twisted the wrenches as the wires and the nerves started to connect with each and every twist of the wrench. After a grueling 20 minutes, he had now got a new right arm. "Try to move a finger," Winry asked him. The pinky finger twitched, and slowly, twitch after twitch, he could make a fist. After doing this 6 more times, Naruto could make a fist much more smoothly. "Okay, it seems like you can move your hand," Winry said as she looked at the notes that she and her grandmother had made. "Time for the chakra infusion," she continued. "It's my turn," the QB said as it sent its chakra through the arm. The arm gave off a crimson glow from the shoulder and moved slowly down his arm and into the hand. Once the light died down, he moved his hand as it became natural and fluid. "Okay, now the next thing that we need you to do is to see if you can lift your arm," Pinako told him. He started to lift his arm as the metal groaned for a little while before he could move it like he was born with it attached to him. And so they did the same for the leg. He wiggled his toes, moved his foot, had chakra pushed into it by the QB, and it had been like he was born with metal limbs. Pinako and Winry looked over the automail fitted to Naruto as he moved his arm and leg. "Okay, now we need you to see if you can walk," Winry said. Naruto moved his legs over the edge of the bed, placed both his feet on the floor, lifted himself, and almost face-planted the floor. Luckily, his mother and another girl with lightning-fast reflexes caught him before he could hit the ground. "Okay, let's try that again," Naruto muttered. Naruto had put everything as he held on to his mother and the girl that works with her and lifted himself up. It was steady going as his automail leg was slow on the uptake, but it soon caught up with the rest of his body. Pinako looked him over before saying, 3 days using crutches, and then you would be right as rain, Pinako told him. Naruto nods as he slowly walks back to the bed, waiting for a pair of crutches. "So, how did you and Dad meet, Mom?" Naruto asked her. Artemis grew a blush on her face, as red as the hair on her head, as everyone in the room burst out in laughter. Hokage's office. Hiruzen was in his office looking now a crystal ball at what was happening with Naruto in his hospital room with him getting a new arm and lower leg. He smiled at Naruto while talking with his mother before his face twisted into a glare and a snarl as he looked at the two people in the room with him tied to the chairs at his desk. "What were you two thinking?" he growled at them. The two people were the elders of Konoha, his old teammates and his advisors. "We don't know what you're on, Abo," the male elder stared, saying before the room became heavy with some force in the air. "Organizing the attack on Naruto 6 hours before his birthday, aiding Danzo in trying to kill me, and granting powers to the council that they should not have," Hijuen growled at them. The two that were sat before the Hokage could barely speak as they could see that he would get his answers from them. "So I will ask you two one more time before I throw both of you to a Biki to have every little secret pulled out of your heads and have it shown to me like a movie. So what the fuck were you two useless shitheads were thinking?" He asked them with fire that was ready to kill them if they tell so much as a single lie to him. As the force in the air grew lighter as the male elder spoke, Minato made him into a weapon for this village to use for winning battles and advancing to the size of our borders, he told him. Danzo saw fit to use a fully trained Jinchuriki to let us take villages Iwa and Kumo, the female elder added. Hiruzen got up from his seat and turned around to look out the window to look at the village. "But you stopped our advancement when you had taken the spot as Hokage," the female elder continued. "And so we need to show that Konoha was the village of true strength," the male elder said as he added for this partner in crime. Hiruzen turned back sharply. "What did you do, Hamura?" he asked them in a whisper, but his voice carried through the office like a roar. "When Iwa, Kiri, and Kumo attacked Yuzu, we knew that we had got our break. So we and Danzo decided that the whole of the Uzumaki needed only a few in the royal family," Hamura said as gained a look of pure joy. "And Lady Mito made her the Jinchuriki, and we planned to plant seeds in her head that had grown into a tree of greatness," the female elder added for Hamura. Their faces twisted into anger and hate as they looked at the man leading the village. "But you got to her first and started your investigation into what happened to that island filth," she continued. "So when you got ready to step down, we groomed Orochi to take your place so that we can have a Konoha that could take this village to new heights," Hamura told him. The anger in Hiruzen's eyes returned 1,000-fold as he looked at his former teammates. "Kohu, what did you do to my student?" he growled at her. "I didn't do anything. That was all Danzo," she said as she could feel the swords of the Umbu get closer to her neck. "Well, with some help from Kagami, that was," Koharu added as she looked pleased with herself. "With a medic root ninja, we transplanted one of Kagami's eyes into the eye that Danzo had lost," Hamura said as he also looked pleased with himself. "But you made Minato the Hokage, and they threw a wrench in our plans. So we started to plant seeds of unconfidences in the council, and they almost worked as well," Koharu said. "But Minato became the one that everyone wanted. So the unconfidences quickly changed to confidences," Hamura said before a smile formed on his face. "Then a man came to us," he told Hiruzen. "A man?" Hiruzen asked him as she thought. "Is it the one that summoned the Kyuubi to attack the village on his behalf?" "And if you're thinking that if it were the one that summoned the Kyuubi to attack the village, then you would be right. It was him," Hamura continued as he looked happy. "And with that Uzumaki giving birth to that child who became our Jinchuriki, and you took back your place as Hokage," Koharu said as she got ready to die. "So we gave power to the civilians on the council and told them that if anyone that could hurt the boy would get waived by us," Hamura said. "We also sent funding route so that when you ordered Danzo to it down so that it would stay working," he added after a bit of thought. After a few minutes of them not speaking for a few minutes, Hiruzen realized that they had finished what they were saying. So he said, "I see. Do either of you have any last words for me?" "Yes, that you were a shit Hokage, and do you know what, Hiruzen?" Koharu asked him as she looked into the eyes of the Hokage. "And what is that, Koharu?" he asked her as the Umbu got ready to kill them. "I don't regret it," she said with a twisted smile. Her smile stayed as the Umbu removed her head from her shoulders. The head slid to the floor as the blood flowed out of her core. "And you, Hamura?" Hiruzen asked the only living elder. "I only regret that we did not kill you when we had the chance," he told his old teammate. Hiruzen nodded his head as Hamura's head joined Koharu's on the floor. As Umbu moved their bodies, Hiruzen called to them. "Get their bodies ready for the bonfire in the morning," he told them. "Yes, Hokage-sama," was the call from the Umbu as they cleaned up his office from the blood that was on the floor. Once the Umbu had cleaned the room, Hiruzen returned to doing his paperwork before a knock came at his door. "Come in," he called out. His receptionist walked in as with her was a woman with black hair tied back into a ponytail. She has light-skinned skin. She was wearing purple pants reaching to her calves, black sandals, a black cross-wrapped crop tank top, and a leather jacket over that. Her gray eyes looked at the Hokage with some hope for what she was here for. "How may I help you, miss?" Hiruzen asked her. "Sumiho Wakatsuki. I'm here to make a deal for my husband's life," Sumiho said as she moved to sit down in front of him. The next day, Konoha Prison. Naruto hobbled up to the prison as Hiruzen was standing outside. "Thank you for coming," Hiruzen said as Naruto came up to him. "I am confused about what you want," Naruto told him as they entered the building. As they walked straight into the cell blocks until they reached a cell with a woman that Naruto had taken down 2 days ago. They first reached cell number 11456 AD 559. "Gigi, who is being held here?" Naruto asked him. "Do you remember the woman that you knocked out when coming to my aid on the highway 2 days ago?" Hiruzen asked the boy. "Well, I sent a fire blast ball at en route Umbu that saved you," Naruto said as a woman with dark bluish-black hair walked up to the. "This is her," he said as he pointed at her. "She's Hinoto, and I'm giving her to you," he told him. Naruto turned to him so fast his neck cracked. "You're doing what?" Naruto asked him. "She is going to work for you and your family as a maid, slave, or something else," Hiruzen said as Naruto looked at the woman. Hiruzen walked off as Naruto hobbled after him. "Why are you doing this?" Naruto asked him. They reached the door that read, "Cell Block Z," as Hiruzen opened the door. "The people of Konoha owes you a great deal. I am doing something that can help you do just that," Hiruzen told him as they left. Naruto was using his crutches to hobble next to Hiruzen as they made their way to a cell. "So, Gigi, where are we going?" Naruto asked him. "Someone has given me a deal for someone's life," Hiruzen told the young mage. "Who?" Naruto asked him. "Do you know Akira Wakatsuki?" Hiruzen asked Naruto as they walked and hobbled. "Other than he owns the fish market and tried to kill me last night, nothing," Naruto told him. They both turned a corner to see an office come into view. "Well, his wife wants to make a deal to keep him alive," Hiruzen said as he opened the door to the office. "And what is the deal?" Naruto asked as they entered the room. Before Hiruzen, a black-haired woman spoke up. "I offered him many deals, but we agreed on something," she told him. Naruto turned to her and saw that she was talking to a balding man with storm blue eyes. He was dressed in a prison jumpsuit with black boots on his feet. Oh, they also cuffed him to the table. Naruto knew this man was Akira Wakatsuki, so the woman must be his wife, Naruto thought. "Sumiho, what is this deal that you have made?" Akira asked her. She turned back to her husband. "I begged for your life so that our child would always have her father," she told him. She originally wanted to give Naruto all her money, Hiruzen said as he looked at the man. "But since we have a joint account, that woman already gave it all to him," Akira said as he was getting the picture. "I then tried to give him the deed to your business, but he said the boy already had it," Sumiho said as Akira nodded his head. "And so she kept going until she offered her life instead of yours," Hiruzen said as Akira looked angry. "You offered what?" he growled at her. "I offered to die in your stead," she told him. "But I changed it," Hiruzen said, "as there are many ways to offer one's life," he continued. "You put her in the service of this demon," Akira said as he ground his teeth. "No, I put her in the service of Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, demigod of Artemis, son of Kwahina Uzumaki, otherwise known as Artemis, goddess of the moon, the hunt, the wild, childbirth and mating girls, and Minato Namikaze," Hiruzen said as he pointed at Naruto. "He's a what?" Sumino asked him. "Demigod or half-blood," Naruto said as he listed them. "I'm a child of a god as my mother is a goddess," he continued. Sumino looked confused as Akira asked, "Then last night those people that came to save you were gods," only to see Naruto nod his head. "Then we angered the gods." He slumped in his chair. "What have we done?" he said as realization sank in. "Is there any way to appease them?" Sumino asked from where she was sat. A bright light burst into the room in the shape of an eagle before it changed into the shape of Zeus, the king of the gods. Naruto fell to a knee and called out, "Praise Zeus, Lord of the sky, king of the gods." Hiruzen saw what Naruto was doing and did the same along with the same call as Sumino did, and Akira bowed his head gave out the call. "You may raise," he told them before turning to Sumino. "So you wish to keep your husband alive, but work in service of my grandson," Zeus said as a golden throne form as he sat down. They all, apart from Akira, got to their feet. "Lord Zeus, why are you here?" Hiruzen asked him. "As a god that resides over honor and justice, I have come to make sure that the deal is truly fair," he told the Hokage. Sumino looked at Zeus and said, "Yes." Zeus looked at her. She said that she has a child, a daughter nonetheless. He thought to himself before he turns look to his grandson. He will need some help around his house, and this will be a test for him as well, Zeus thought as he was getting a plan in his head. "I see then, Hiruzen," Zeus said before turning to the oldest human in the room. "I have thought that we can keep this one alive." Sumino gained a smile on her face. Still, sadly Zeus was not finished, but he must remain in prison for the rest of his days, while his wife becomes a maid to the Uzumaki clan, Zeus concluded as the smile on Sumino's face lost its brightness. "And my child?" Akira asked the god. "She will stay with your wife and will either work for the Uzumaki clan, or she will leave it," Zeus told him before adding, "That is up to my grandson." Akira let the words of Zeus float around his head for a bit before he looked at his wife. "Take the deal," he told her. Sumino looked at him in shock. "Why?" she asked him. "It keeps a roof over Rin's head, and so when she is growing up, she can learn from my mistakes," Akira said before his eyes moved to Naruto. "That hate is a foolish thing," he said as Naruto nodded his head. "If your daughter or wife ever wants to see you, I will do everything in my power to let that happen," Naruto said to him. "Thank you," was all Akira said to him. Naruto nodded at the man before he turned to Hiruzen and said, "Lilith is showing me some more spells today for a birthday gift, so I must be off." "Very well, I will send your gift later," Hiruzen said as Naruto turned to his grandfather. "I will send you my praise to you, grandfather," Naruto said as he bowed to Zeus. "Goodbye, grandson," the Lord of the Sky said to his before Naruto hobbled out the door. A few hours later, Fox's Grove. After Naruto had hobbled from Konoha prison to the Fox's Grove only to see that Shursui, Artemis, her hunters, Apollo, Mikoto, Fugaku, Sasuke, Itachi, Winry, Pinako and Lilith was waiting for him. "Happy birthday," they screamed at him as he entered the grove. Naruto jumped like a cat as they screamed. "What?" Naruto asked with a questionable look on his face. One of the hunters looked at another and said, "This is going to take a lot of work." "Yeah," another said as Artemis walked over to Naruto. "It's your birthday party," she told him softly as he looked around to see that the grove had tables with food atop of them, and there was a large cake. There was also a table with colorful boxes that were tied with bows. "What are they?" Naruto asked as he pointed at the boxes. "Your birthday presents," she told him as shock came over his face as he walked over to the table. "It seems like the little man wants his presents first," Shursui said as Naruto looked over them all. Naruto picked up a blue box with a yellow bow, and he opened it to see some incense sticks. A large box was full of incense sticks. He picked up the label to see who it was from and said, "Thank you, Parthenos." A teen with brown eyes and black hair walked up. She had thin skin and wearing the garb of the hunters. "That is me," she said to him. "They should come in handy with some spells," she told him. Naruto thanked her as a little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes ran up to the table and grabbed a large box the size of her and handed it to him. "This is from me," she said. She gave the box to Naruto. "Thank you, Eve," Naruto said as he read the name on the label. Naruto opened the box to see that it held a large basketball-sized white gemstone. "It can be used in a staff so that you can harness magic from the air," Eve told him. "And you can also store mana in it as well," Lilith said as an elven woman walked up next. She had light blonde hair, pale skin, and emerald green eyes. "Young spellsmith, I giveth this gift you for your date of birth with this," she said as she handed him something oval that was wrapped up in a green cloth. Thank you, Naruto said after reading her name. She nodded her head as Naruto moved the green cloth away from the object inside to see that it was an egg. The egg was pure black with a scale-like pattern around the top of the egg. Allru, did you give our lady's son and our brother a dragon egg? A punk-looking girl asked as Naruto's head snapped to her. I am holding a dragon egg, Naruto asked as his brain could barely handle this. Yes, it is the egg of the mightiest of all the dragons, the Night Fury, Allru said as Artemis looked at her hunter. A Night Fury, she asked the elf, and once Allru nodded her head, then they would be a perfect mount for you when they are older, she told Naruto, who put the egg down gently. A girl with blue hair walked up to Naruto and handed him a small box off the table. The box was rectangular, and once we opened it, a wooden box was engraved with wolves and moons. When he opened the box to see that it was empty, I made the box myself, she told him. Naruto picked up the label and then said, Thanks, Lexi. She nodded her head as Naruto picked up another box. Who is Pelagia? Naruto asked. That is me, a girl with brown hair said as she raised her hand. When he opened the box, it was a set of clothes. Their clothes would be an exaggeration. They were armor, dark green samurai armor, and the kyubi on the kabuto. This lot will come in handy one day, Naruto said as he looked over the armor. I know a spell that will help with that, Lilith said as she looked over the armor in Naruto's hand. What spell? Naruto asked her. Requip, Lilith said as a book appeared in her hand after a magic circle. I'll show you how to use it later, she told him. Naruto nodded his head as he picked up what seemed like more clothes, and as it turned out to be a blue hooded parka, pants, mittens, inner footwear, and outer boots with silver fur around the hood, mittens and boots. Thank you, Taki, Naruto said as a woman with brown skin and blue eyes nodded to him. An elf walked over to him and handed him a bow made from silver wood. I carved this bow myself, and it will aid you in your coming battles, the elf told him as she pointed at the bow. Thank you. Naruto was going to say her name, but she beat it to him. I am Mifra, she said as her orange hair flowed over her shoulder. Thank you, Mifra, Naruto said as he bowed to her. Mifra and Allru both smiled at Naruto as he bowed to the former of the two. I have to add some lessons of the culture of different races to him as well, Lilith thought to herself. A tan-skinned girl walked up next as she handed him a bundle in her hands and gave it to Naruto. I am Nava, she said as Naruto unwrapped the bundle to find an orange yukata within it. Another elf walked up, but she had black hair and amber eyes this time. Young mage, I am Fasla, and I gift upon you this. She gave Naruto a book. The book read as common to Elvish. Thank you, Fasla, for this, Naruto said. A large blonde woman walked up as she walked up to Naruto and handed something to Naruto. This was given to me by my brother, she said before she continued. Well, half-brother. Thank you, Helga, Naruto said as he read her name. Naruto was unwrapped it only to find out that it was a stone tablet with a metal wolf embedded in it along with a Norse knot and runes written all over it. As he brushed his hand over the stone tablet, his eyes glowed gold as they clouded over. Fenris Jefton Mountain. Naruto looked up to see he was now in front of a large dark mountain, and the next thing he knew, he started walking down the snow. When he reached the peak, he found something large. It was massive that seemed to dwarf the mountain. Naruto could make out that it was covered in pitch-black fur. Glistening golden chains were tied around its legs, stomach, and neck. They had two glowing red eyes looking down at Naruto. It was a gigantic wolf. So you're the magic user, the wolf said as it growled out in a male voice. That I am, Naruto said as he looked at the wolf. The wolf moved closer to Naruto as the chains jangled, and so I must give you a gift, it said to him. Naruto raised a brow as the wolf touched Naruto's left arm. The chains got sucked into the arm, and the wolf started to shrink. Fox's Grove. To the rest of the people in the grove, the stone tablet in Naruto's hands turned to golden light and pushed itself into Naruto's left arm, and he gained a Nordic knot pattern forming around his left bicep. A mist arose from the ground and turned into a small black wolf with red eyes. So I shall be that gift, the wolf said to Naruto. Naruto, not seeing the shock on his mother's face, turned to the wolf and said, "So it is." He then started to stroke the fur and asked, "What's your name, thou?" He asked him. "I'm Fenrir, father of wolves," the wolf told him. "Of course, my son has Fenrir as a pet," Artemis muttered as she looked at him. Konoha Center. While Naruto was getting presents from the people who love him and treat him like family, the four surviving the night before reached their end before the entire village. All four men were on a stage kneeling there, getting ready for their death. Last night, before the anniversary of the attack on Konoha Kaibi that cost US the Yondaime Hokage and the father of the one that they tried to kill, Hizuzen yelled as he walked onto the stage. The crowd was confused as they looked at each other and thought about what today was. Then they remembered what day it was. October 10th. The birthday of Naruto Uzumaki. So with what he said that Minato Namikaze. So that means. Then that must be, a teacher muttered as he thought about it. No, it can't be, another teacher said as they tried to deny it. But then they thought about the two as they could see that Naruto was a younger-looking Minato with 6 whiskers on his face. And I have said over and over, do not harm him, and for him to be treated like a hero, but you have tired to kill him, Hiruzen yelled as Umbu carried the bodies of Koharu and Himura over. They dumped the bodies in a bundle of sticks and added logs over their bodies. And Uchiha walked up and breathed out a massive fireball that lit the wood. The smell of charred flesh filled the air, and it moved through the crowd as they tried to keep the smell out of their face. And so I will say this: known Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki is to be treated like a hero. The hero was always supposed to be treated like since he was born. Hiruzen roared out as the 4 men had their heads cut off before getting their bodies being thrown into the roaring fire. And let this be my truly last warning, he told them all. Fox's Grove. And this is how you perform requip and not to lose your clothes, Lilith said as Naruto got ready to cast the spell once more. Naruto nodded. Requip, he called out as his eyes glowed gold as below his feet his magic circle formed and glowed in orange and black as the glow started to overtake his body. Once the light died down, Naruto was wearing a black robe with a high collar, sleeveless indigo shirt, black pants and boots, and black cloth covering his right leg and arm. A pauldron in Naruto's chest is covered by 2 straps, held in place by a badge representing Fenrir, a wolf that has come to be associated with him. Like the rest of the party, he wears a pink ribbon around his left arm and black boots. I make this look good, Naruto said as he gained a smile on his face.